Myles. Myles. Myles.
Bryan.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good.
Myles, I gotta say, I'm doing okay, except I gotta say, I am my least favorite thing about myself and about this show, so let's just get it right out there in the open, right? Is how terrible I am about keeping track of all the tips. And the worst part about that is that it's always the loyalist cat out there who doesn't get their tip read. And so for the second show in a row, I think, this might be, there might have been a show between it, but for the second show in a row, Looper the Underground Gamecat with €5 commented on the last episode saying if Take-Two wins in regards to this whole VR modding issue. He says, I'm requesting a refund for Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, and the Mafia trilogy on Steam. And I got to say one thing, Looper, fucking hats off to you. Vote with your wallets. Make sure that the only way any company will ever listen to anybody is if it hurts them in the pocket, right where it counts. So keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
All right, man. With that out of the way, let's get this show started.
Happy Friday. Let's do this, Bryan.
Hell yeah. Two Wise Friday.
Yeah, do the poll.
This is PSVR GamesCast Live. We film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and Two Wise Friday right here on YouTube live, 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you're watching it right now, you're probably watching it live. If you're watching it right now later, you might not be watching it live, which I know gets confusing, but that's okay. We don't care. You know, we don't care if you're watching it now or if you're watching it later. But the people who are watching it now get some extra warm fuzzies from us. So there's that. But if you are watching it later, don't forget you can also engage in this conversation because Myles and I do our absolute best to keep track of these videos, keep track of all the comments, and come back after the fact and keep the conversation going. So if you have your 2 cents to throw into the mix, then please add them in the comments below, and you'll probably hear from one of us. Hopefully, hopefully it's after coffee. Hopefully it's not after too much booze. Hopefully we're cool. My name's Bryan Powell from this channel right here, PSVR.Pro. And this gentleman to my right is Myles Dyer from Myles Dyer Official Instagram, the Myles Dyer YouTube channel, a.k.a. youtube.com/Myles.
How we doing?
All right.
It's actually, I tell you what, based on what you were just talking about, it's a nice part of my ritual because I do this show. It finishes, midnight, maybe 1 a.m. Might chat in voice chat on Discord afterwards. Go to bed, and then when I wake up as a part of my morning ritual, it's good to then go into the comments, and then by that time, because it's always that thing of like the live chat stays as live chat, and the comments starts from zero as soon as the show becomes replayable, and it's just nice to go through the comments. In live chat, it's a bit more fast-paced. So even people that have been on the live show sometimes like to consolidate their thoughts, maybe think about it more, and then do a mini essay. And it's always amazing to see the discussions. And as long as things are respectful, which they usually are, there's always like heated debate, which is great to see. And I think that the topic of today is going to be really, really good for some discussion because it's kind of in a weird way, like a way of celebrating a generation of VR, because it's kind of like a way of saying what games best represent, what we've gone through. But I'm looking forward to all that conversation today.
It's very, very true. And keeping it respectful in the chat is Man Bear Pig Gamecat with a $2 tip. Doesn't say anything, which is totally fine. We really appreciate your generosity. If you have something to say, throw it in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on it. Make sure your words are heard, unless it's just absolutely terrible, and then we'll probably ignore you a little bit. Dude, this community is so amazing. So amazing. Like, it's crazy. Every single time I turn around, somebody else is doing something for us, or sending something my way. I don't know if you're aware of this, but like an amazing GameCat out there had bought me all 4 of the Silent Hill skateboard decks, which is insane. They asked.
Are you actually going to? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to keep it wrapped? I assume it's still wrapped, right?
That's why it's all like reflective because it's in plastic. But I just they're all individually numbered. Oh wow! And so like right now, before I hang them up, I don't want to take them out of the plastic because anything could happen around here. Then once I hang them up, I'll make sure that they're shown off. But the art design on them is amazing. So thank you to all the GameCats out there who show their love in all sorts of different ways. And as you saw, Myles, you probably saw on Wednesday's show, Looper the Gamecat, whose tip we just read at the beginning of the show, he documented every single game of PSVR 20 questions we've ever played, the amount of time it took to guess, the number of questions it took to get there, who was hosting, who's playing.
What?
I mean, he even submitted a link with the timestamps, so you could all 169, well now 170. I just like saying 169 because it's more fun. All 170 times we've played PSVR 20 questions, he has documented, and so just to add to that. Serial Killer, the Gamecat. Let's just go to the full screen and bring this up. He created a wiki for us, a Wikipedia page. It's a fandom Wikipedia page because they're way easier to deal with than trying to make an actual wiki. But it's super duper easy to access this. I know I have the link here somewhere. This
is super cool. I'm looking. Yeah.
I've got it. I'll send it to you now. If you guys want to check it out, the URL is super easy to remember. It's gamecats.fandom.com. and then it brings you to the PlayStation VR2 without parole page. So thank you very much, Serial Killer, for keeping the dream alive, man. We're still working on getting our official website up. And you know how Wikipedia pages work. If you have things to add, things to contribute, then you're in luck because Serial Killer will.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
But the reason I had my head in my hand over the 20 questions is it now means I have to relive the times that I've got things wrong and people go, oh yeah, look, we've now got it timestamped to that time Myles said, you're not in a vehicle for Iron Man VR. Yeah, you remember that when Myles lied? Is it going to say how many lies I've told in each game? This could go horribly wrong. But no, that's amazing. And what I love about online communities like this is any viewer, on any show can have this idea for a project. And, it takes a long time to do it, but it's incredible. And it means that things get done that, us wouldn't think of doing ourselves. Obviously, it's not a priority in the grand scheme of things of running a show. But the fact is, we can have these amazing things, whether it's a wiki page or an archive of a particular show format. Amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So awesome.
It's pretty amazing for sure. And included in this, of course, is Looper's entire spreadsheet of 20 questions. I didn't even realize this. He's got the list of all the current hosts, all the former hosts. Pretty nutso. Oh, and you can click on these. Let's see what Dave's up to. There's nothing on Dave's page, but there is a page for Dave, and that's the important thing. Let's see here. I want to make sure we don't miss anything. We'll keep the tips read as they come in so we don't get too far behind this time. Chrome Colossus, aka Genetic Blasphemy, the abbreviated Gamecat, with the $5 tip says, Knife Maker 1 asks if there are any treadmills compatible with PSVR. Welcome, Knifey. That's an excellent question. I want to say that the Cat VR treadmills are compatible. The problem is it's more about the games being compatible on PSVR with the device itself, right? Like the 3D rudder, threw its hat into the ring to be one of this more immersive type ways to play games, but it all depended on who was willing to support that. So if you go over to the Cat VR treadmill, really, I think they're the only ones out there making a decent treadmill. Just check the list of compatible games and see how all that works. I don't have one. And so if it's just automatically compatible somehow, which I highly doubt, then that's something I'm not familiar with. Thanks for pointing out Knife Maker's question, Genetic Blasphemy.
Bryan, we've also got a poll running in the chat, so anyone that's logged in on YouTube can get involved. It's a simple question. It obviously relates to the topic of today's show, but we just want to know, what tier of PlayStation Plus are you currently subscribed to? So you've got PlayStation Essential, or Plus Essential, PlayStation Plus Extra, PlayStation Plus Premium, or I'm not subscribed to Plus. I know some people just don't subscribe to it. So yeah, be sure to vote in that. We'll return to the results and talk about it a bit later. But yeah, bit of interactivity never goes amiss. Oh, and hit that like button. Hit that like button. Last week it hit 350 likes. So the target this week isn't going to be that, because that's a huge amount. We're going to go for 300. Let's go for 300. If we smash it again, more power to you, Gamecats.
People were extra generous with the likes last week because they felt bad for me.
Yeah.
I was trying to point out on a PSVR1 headset. I was like, and here's where the wire is detachable on a PSVR2 head. And it's just like, Brian, please.
And they were like,
please just
what
stop.
can we do?
We'll click the button. Just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While he's struggling, what could I do? Oh, I guess I could click the like button. Oh, I might unlike it and like it again. Yeah, just
yeah. Like this is really uncomfortable for us, Brian. Please just stop. Guys, I know we've been going on a little bit long on the housekeeping today, but please don't forget that you can join us over on Discord. They'll click the link for that in the description below. That's where these conversations happen 24/7. Totally free to join. Also on Patreon, though, if you want to support us there financially, you can hit us up for the $3 tier, and that gets not only your name on that awesome scroll down below with all the cats that are scrolling by one after another, but you can also get access to voice chat over on our Discord. And then for the $5 tier, you get some exclusive videos. But I am trying to make everything a little bit more rewarding over on Discord. So eventually, the old school Litterbox episodes are coming back for all the tiers. So consider that. But you know, we also don't there's so many different ways to show your support to the channel. It doesn't have to be money. It can be changing your name to Gamecat just by hitting the like button or just watching the show. That's all we really care about, that you're a member of this community. But please also don't forget, as important as subscribe to us, don't forget to subscribe to Myles Dyer over there on youtube.com/Myles. Myles, what is going on over in your neck of the woods this week?
So I didn't actually get to see Wednesday's show because I was away from home. I was actually at a work offsite. Luckily, the hotel, it was a country house in the middle of nowhere. Beautiful, had really good internet, some of the best internet I've ever seen in a hotel, which was surprising. So I actually did my live show. I was at dinner with my colleagues, and then as the desserts came out, I was like, I've got to be live in 5 minutes. So I scoffed down this... what was it? It was like an orange chocolate tart, and it had like caramelized popcorn on it. Some, you know how it is, pretentious but delicious food that they always do in restaurants, like small portions but really well presented, stuff that I wouldn't ever be able to do myself. And then I literally ran the other side of the hotel, logged on, and it turned out to be a really good show because I managed to load onto my work laptop a lot of the broadcast stuff. There was some limitations. And the hour just flew by. And so, it was really, really good. I also gave the link for calling into the show to my entire colleagues across the company saying, I'm doing this live show. If any of you want to go on your mobile phone and dial in and have a conversation. But I think no one wanted to do it because they didn't want to risk exposing themselves after a few drinks or something, you know, and misrepresenting the company. But no, it was an amazing few days. I'm absolutely exhausted. It's been really hot weather as well here in the UK. So behind me, that's probably off screen, I've got an aircon unit running, and it's quite loud. It's not as loud as a PlayStation 4 trying to play God of War, but it's I don't think you guys can hear it. So it's amazing that that's worked. So I'm a part of the aircon club, which I know is pretty standard in the US compared to the UK. The two things I always mention in the US that a lot of places have is aircon
and guns,
and you have and guns. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's not where you were going with this.
No. They come with the house. You get the keys to the house and a gun on it. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. No, I was thinking of the flight. The I don't know what the nets are that are over the windows, but you know, so that bugs don't. You can leave the windows open at night and you're not getting bugs coming through.
Like
I don't know if is it? Yeah, like screens. But yeah. I don't know if it's like that's only in certain states. But I've noticed it. I've been in San Francisco, down south. I don't know if on the East Coast, like in Massachusetts, because it's quite European weather, so you probably don't need the screens.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of primitive cave you're living in over there, Myles. Like I've lived all over the place. I've visited all over the place. I've never seen a house that didn't have screens on it.
Yeah, right. So ours, no houses here have it. The mosquito net things. Yeah, we have it. So like, if I want to open the windows, I'm just gonna have loads of flies coming in. It's horrible. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, believe it or not, that's not what we're here to talk about today. Although maybe we'll do a full episode of we'll talk about screen sizes for VR, and I'll just be talking about Windows screen sizes.
Yeah, I'm shocked and appalled at this news. Fred Kurtz with the $2 tip says, could there be a Playroom VR 2 on PSVR2? Myles, I don't know about you, man, but I think Playroom VR 2 would be amazing for PSVR2, but I don't know how necessary it would be. I think the idea of the Playroom is to give you something fun to play and also give you like something to kind of show off the tech of the thing you just bought, right? Like it was great for PSVR1, whatever. But I feel like Astrobot's sort of taken over the role of that. I'd really like to see an Astro's Playroom specifically on PlayStation VR 2, even if it's not Astrobot Rescue Mission 2 on launch. Get that to us eventually, Sony, team of Tobii. But definitely some sort of Astrobot game that's at least, because dude, you must have played the one on PlayStation 5, right? The Astro's Playroom. It was so good.
Yeah.
It showed off. It showed off the DualSense tech, and we get to see some of Astro's friends acting out different Sony games. Man, it was just a lot of fun.
When you think how long it's been since the Playroom came out for the PS5, it's been a couple of years now. So they are probably working on a main game, but they're definitely doing a tech demo. I think we can expect it might be a hybrid where they do a sort of Astro's Playroom mixed with the sort of the main platform game, but also the more multiplayer experiences as well. Like they might just bring it all together. Yeah, I'm super excited with that. Was that a question that was in the chat, right?
What are we talking about?
Was this question?
It was a tip. Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was going to say, because this goes on nicely to our viewers' takeover, because one of the viewers' takeover questions was also about this, saying, where is our family-friendly PSVR2 launch game like Playroom VR was? Because that hasn't been announced yet. But then
screw your family-friendly launch games.
But those
all horror, all the time, blood and guts, zombie killing, decapitation, gut wrenching.
So
yeah,
but those games are just like in the sort of montage trailers, right? They don't announce them. Like Astro, was the Astro launch title for PS5 announced beforehand? It was kind of just in the blog, wasn't it? I don't know if they did a trailer for it. I can't remember. But I feel like those family games are kind of a given, and it will just be a part of launch in the montage. They haven't, unless they do a Sackboy VR game or something like that. But you're right. I think the balance is we haven't had any family-friendly PSVR2 titles. But I think when we get to the showcase and they show the plethora of a massive variety of games, I think that's when we'll see it. Hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Bugsnax. Yeah.
Oh, Bugsnax would be great. Arian with the 35 cubic zirconia says, is the Tobii tech that will be used in the PSVR 2 software or hardware or both? I'm surprised that the partnership was only confirmed very recently. They've been in negotiations for a really long time. And so I feel like that there was probably some sort of NDA on saying, hey, we are the tech that'll be used. So it's an interesting question because if you as somebody who doesn't know the technical answer to this question, when you see somebody like a certain developer tweet, show off their headset that's sitting on a desk chair, which it looks like a retail unit, you go, well, this has been in production, and it's probably been in production for a long time, and all these other developers had to have the more PSVR2 dev kit style headset. Obviously whatever's going on, it has to be working in all of these units prior to having Tobii announce that the deal had gone through. And so my assumption is that that's already integrated into all this hardware that we've been seeing and hearing about. And that I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer. But I have a feeling the deal was probably worked out long before we heard that the deal was finalized. But yeah, I would assume that's hardware and software working in conjunction with each other. That it's actually cameras that are tracking your eye, like looking at your pupil and determining where your pupil is. But I could be wrong about that. I just never really questioned it before.
I think post-pandemic, global pandemic, with all the supply issues and that, you probably have to order stuff even more in advance, especially for these units that are built at absolute scale with all the issues they've had before. I can imagine that the deals were these have to have been discussions, because it's kind of a chicken or egg thing, isn't it? Because when you're designing a new headset and saying, what are the features that we need? You have to go out to those and say, hey, this is what we're thinking at this year.
Yep.
you need to know a rough estimate of the cost, because when you're producing things in the millions, the margins matter. That every, dollar, or even fraction of that, every decimal, can be the difference between making millions and losing millions.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I guess we don't really have a good answer for you, but it's certainly something I'll look into, because anytime I don't know the answer, I kind of want to know the answer. We'll get just a couple more tips here, and then we're going to get to our first viewer takeover question. Professor Lilith with a $5 tip says, because it's 40% off and we haven't played it yet, the Sunday, July 10th multiplayer is Alvo. It's currently on sale for $15 in the States. Yep, I'm down for that, for sure.
Yeah, Alvo, I need to jump back into it for sure.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah, anyone who's unfamiliar with our weekly meetups, they happen every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern. The best place to kind of go and help get organized and get yourself situated and make sure that you're part of the group, again, is on Discord. So click the link in the description, and then go check out the meetup channel. Thank you very much, Professor Lilith, for handling that. Looper the Underground Gamecat with the €2 says, does Myles have... Oh, God. It's more European or more UK questions. With the €2 says, does Myles have separate hot and cold water taps?
No. It's all comes out of one. But there are a lot of separate ones. But this is the thing is, I love these conversations because the mundane differences. Like when I go to the States, I'm always blown away more by the subtle differences of like, isn't that strange that we do those things slightly differently? And the way I've always explained it is, when I go to another country where you speak a different language, whenever you see differences, your mind straight away goes, well, of course, different language, different culture, of course there's going to be differences. So going to America or Canada or Australia, it always fascinates me because it's like you lose that barrier. It's like, okay, we speak the same language. And so the only differences you see is the way that you live. And you're like, okay, this is bizarre. Different. You drive on the different side of the road. Roundabouts, they do exist in the US, but not too much. All of your junctions are, crossroads. And when you get to the traffic lights, I think you can always turn. You don't have to stop at the traffic light. You can always go, is it right or left? Drivers can let me know.
All of the things you're saying right now are very questionable, and I've lived here for a long time. We have lots of roundabouts that we call rotaries. I do anyway. Okay. I'm sure it's a regional thing where like some states have more than others. There is no like, yes, you can automatically turn this way or that way at a light. Like you should be able to turn right on red, but like there's usually signs that say don't turn right on red or right on red. So it's very like situation dependent.
Can you drive, Bryan? Do you have a license?
Yeah.
If you came to the UK, would you drive on the other side of the road?
Would I drive on the correct side of the road? You mean the right hand side?
I'm not saying the other choice is you would drive on the wrong side.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. Or would you be stubborn and go, you know what? I'm an American. I'm going to do things my way. And these Brits can get out of the way. No, I mean, when I go to the States, although my license would allow me to drive in the States, I've never chosen to do it. The idea of driving on the other side just... I think if I was to do it, I'd do it maybe in Texas where there's like long open roads where I could sort of get my confidence up. And I hear it's very easy to get used to when you make that switch. You very quickly become accustomed. But it's something that's never appealed to me.
I would be very nervous having to drive in another country on the left side of the road because it's just, you just do things. I drive without thinking about it. Sometimes it's like I'm on the road for 20 minutes and I'll be like, whoa, I don't even remember like the last 10 minutes of the trip.
Autopilot.
Right? You totally go on autopilot. So I'd hate to just go on autopilot and then but go on on North American autopilot instead of UK autopilot. It would be bad news. It would be nerve-wracking, but I'd still want to give it a shot. I would embarrass myself, drive the wrong way around the roundabout. It'd be amazing.
Embarrassing yourself would probably be the least of your worries.
Right. Endangering myself would probably be, and all of the other cars around me would probably be the biggest.
I've got all these pedestrians on my on the windshield. God, so embarrassing. All this death, so embarrassing.
This is going to be the longest show of all time.
We're
30 minutes in and we haven't actually started the show. Arian with the 35 cubic zirconia says, "What's your latest guess on when we'll hear an update on PSVR2?" Dude, all I got to say about this is that I have no idea what Sony's doing anymore, right? Like, we assumed that there would have been a state of play showcasing God of War and seeing here's the first 20 minutes of gameplay, and then at the end they go, fade to black and then give us a release date. They didn't do it that way at all. I had heard that there was definitely some more PSVR2 stuff happening soon after that last state of play. And I was like, well, that's interesting. How's that going to work? And then I was like, oh, okay, well, it might be part of a showcase. It wasn't part of the hardware showcase. And so, dude, there's so many different questions that I've got right now. And the closer we get to September, the more likely it is that everything is just going to hold off and wait till September, the big typical annual September showcase. And if that's the case, then fine. But wow, they really are just waiting to show this thing off more.
Sorry, I'm laughing. It's just the fact that we have super chats coming through talking about window screens. Like this, I just love that this is how we're doing a PSVR show and people are doing super chats to talk about window screens. I love it. I love it.
Listen. You know that our good friend Ollie is out there. If you don't know Ollie, he's the one that almost without fail will be one of the early comments asking where the timestamps are. Ollie, I'm sorry, because this is the kind of stuff he probably needs the timestamps to skip over.
Clearly, this is a niche that I need to dive into. Maybe I need to start a YouTube channel about window screens. Clearly, there's a demand for it.
Oh man! All right. Well, Arian with the other 35 cubic zirconia says, even in South Africa, we do not have window screens. What? And we do not have problems with bugs coming through at night. What? Like what? How is?
Don't you get like dangerous like? Do you get leopards and stuff like that?
Right.
Or buffalo or whatever you have out there.
Right. Panthers,
coming through the window.
Dangerous cats,
yes.
giant tarantulas, and black widows, brown recluses. Yeah, that's what I'd be scared about. Twitcher, the single player Gamecat. We're not doing a show tonight, Myles. Just letting you know. with the £5 says, guess what? Myles can cross a road whenever he decides it's safe to do so without fear of prosecution. Oh, you don't have it.
Jaywalking is not a thing. I remember.
It's really not enforced here. There's just no way it's enforced here. I'm constantly crossing, and
Sure. But if you were in an accident, it'd be like, well, it was your fault. You were jaywalking. Whereas it's the least of your worries. If you're getting hit by a car, you want to make sure you're fine after it. I remember when I was on a school trip and I went to France and we were going to cross the road and I just started crossing and one of my fellow pupils were like, dude, what are you doing? That's jaywalking. And I was like, I'd never heard the term before. So in mainland Europe, jaywalking's a thing. Just for some reason, UK, it's not something that's acknowledged.
Mark Pringlesleaf says, I've heard a rumor that there's an August event coming. Dude,
yeah.
At this point, I'm just not going to believe anything until I see it. It's so easy to just be like, oh, there's an event happening in 2 weeks, or within the next 2 weeks, or within the next 3 weeks, or next month. There's going to be an event, and it's like, and why would you have an event in August if you traditionally have one in September? It's just, I think everybody out there just wants to be the guy who said, hey, I told you this was happening. Everyone throws a ton of shit at the wall. Nothing is sticking these days. Nothing is sticking, and a lot of people that we were looking at as possibly credible leakers have absolutely shown that they have no knowledge of anything at all anymore. So unless this is coming from someone like the Snitch, who's been incredibly accurate, and who's the other guy? There's a recent guy that's been doing really, really well.
Well, you know, the Snitch is the most recent.
Yeah, he is the most recent. You're right. Old Darth, a PSVR2 gaming hound dog, great name, with Canadian $5 tip, says, frustrating how YouTubers like, I'm assuming Colin Moriarty, are aware of PSVR 1 and the games available for it. Hope PSVR 2 and AAA games will improve visibility. I can only assume that'll be the case.
I think it's going to be the first PlayStation VR headset where VR is a domestic mainstream product. Do you know what I mean? When PSVR 1 came out, it was the most niche that VR's ever been, alongside all the other companies. But the thing is that since that came out, you've got the Oculuses and them that have been building this profile with more regular models. So when PlayStation comes back, I think it is going to be forefront in mainstream conversation for that reason. So it is exciting for sure.
Serial killer's trying to keep me honest over here. Yep, there was a tip that I missed here. Professor Lilith with the $2 tip says, I need the Sims VR. I need everything VR. I never played The Sims.
I love the original.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know what everybody else did. You know, I know that everybody, found amazingly creative ways to build a cool sim population and then kill them all in like house fires or drown them in pools or whatever it was.
And I love that it was before the internet. So when the internet came out, everyone was like, I used to do this on The Sims, and everyone did it. So it was like individually, it was not kind of influenced online. But yeah, I used to build a home, fill it with wooden furniture, get them to light the fire, remove the door, wipe them out, and then you could make a haunted house with 8 ghosts. It was amazing. Or yeah, take the swimming pool ladder out.
It's crazy. I will say, I was just thinking in response to Old Darth's statement about PSVR2 and having more visibility and all that. That'll just get rid of the need of without parole. Like I won't have a job anymore because everybody else will actually be covering VR finally, and then no one has to come here anymore. Like finally got rid of those guys. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to start setting up my 401k and get my retirement plans in order. Intercept with a $5 tip says, something I noticed about the RE8 VR trailer is that when you see Ethan open a door, you see his arms, even though all you should see is just his hands. Is that what we're normally seeing in the Resident Evil 8 trailer? Oh God, Intercept. Now you're tugging at all the strings that matter to me, and I'm going to bring up the Village trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Because I need to know. I need to know.
Well, while you're doing that, I just want to say 401k is another difference. That's something I don't understand. So we'll talk about it another time. But that's something we don't have in the UK. We probably have something similar, but yeah, that's definitely an Americanism.
Yeah. Wait, that's what? What trailer is this? This is oh God! This just shows you what a mess I'm working with over here. I think this is the Kairu, Soul of Kairu. AJ and I were bashing on this PSVR2 game pretty hard.
Your long shadows. I just need Lady D to snack on my arms in VR.
Wow! I think we're learning so much about some of the cats out there right now. So yeah, I'm just going to watch this a little bit here. I want to see what kind of interactions we see, and if it's just his hands, and then if it does actually switch to the arms. I'm assuming that Intercept knows what he's talking about, or knows what they're talking about, and I'm very, very interested to see, because does that tell us something about what we're seeing here? Because right here,
I love we're fact checking in real time.
Oh, this is far more interesting than the thing we were going to talk about.
Whoa!
Wait, I think I just saw arm. Oh, yeah, I just see. Oh, this is very interesting. So I haven't played Village, and so this is going to be. So I've got some questions.
You see the arm when she's
when she's
moving down in the cutscene.
So is if anyone who's played Village, obviously we don't want any spoilers, but anyone who's played Village, is that whole door opening like part of some cutscene? And so are we seeing the arms during cutscenes and then seeing just hands during gameplay? I think that would be probably interesting to figure out. But that is interesting. I'm curious to hear why you think that's the case, Intercept. What you think is going on there? Because if you've got some kind of conspiracy theory, then you know me, man. I fucking want to hear it for sure.
Or maybe it's a plot point, like Ethan's had to tie his hand back on. Maybe he finds some arms and he sticks them on. He sews them on. Maybe that's part in the game. Yeah, he finds some arms.
Poor Ethan, man. He's been through so much already.
He's like floating hands. He's like, I'll sew this arm on.
Absolutely
crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Myles.
Let's do viewer takeover, Bryan.
Let's do viewer takeover, guys. If you don't know what viewer takeover is, make sure you head on over to our Discord and click on the viewer takeover channel. That's where you can become part of the show and get your questions read. Yes, we obviously tackle questions that happen in the chat on the show or during tips, but if you want to make sure that we see it beforehand and integrate it into our run of show, like all creative surgically, then that's how you do it. That's how we find it way before you ask it. That's not true. We're not psychic, but you know what I'm saying. And the question that we are wanting to tackle comes to us from Jay Can Cut Glass Meow. says, do you think multiplayer games will have a more secure player base on PSVR 2? Even on the Quest 2, only a few multiplayer games have a long lifespan, with the majority only having a weekend or two before matchmaking becomes problematic. Wow. What do you think, Myles? Is the larger install base of PSVR 2 or the hopeful larger install base of PSVR 2 going to cure our multiplayer woes?
I think it could for a select number of titles. I think the ones that really hit the ground running, and whoever masters, multiplayer and gets that pool of player, that active player base and keeps updating content, all the things we talk about. Was it Solaris? Which I absolutely loved. Absolutely loved that game and was so disappointed that there was just like no visible roadmap, no updates, and it died pretty quickly. The other thing also is, PlayStation VR2 will be the leading headset at the time. Does that mean now that will be, able to have crossplay with all other headsets? But then will they be different versions of games, to do with, what is possible in the PSVR2 compared to others? I think there's all these things, but I think it's a really good opportunity for multiplayer, but it all depends on the number of games at release. If there's only 5 multiplayer games at release and they're solid, then I think that's going to be a good time.
Yeah, I think that more than anything else, I think it's actually less to do with the increased player base. I think it's less to do with the increased install base. If right now, analysts who, again, I don't fucking trust as far as I can throw them, are claiming that Quest 2 has sold upwards of 15 million units, which, for a piece of hardware, not terribly good, but for VR, kind of amazing, right? So 15 million headsets. She goes, oh well, that should ensure that the player base for these multiplayer games is pretty good. As Jay's pointing out, it's just not really the case, and so it comes down to it's going to come down to quite a few things, and I think the biggest thing it's going to come down to is just the software sales, period. And so even if PlayStation VR 2 gets to the 15 million number that Quest 2 is supposedly at right now, I think the more important thing is this hybrid model that Sony has yet to talk about, that I leaked back in August of last year. Because that's what's really going to help us. It's very seldom that you come across a game on the flat screen where there's not people playing, right? I mean, if it's a new game, it's been out for a year or two, like you generally go to, and there's people playing. And so if we could have a successful launch of hybrid games where we never have to worry that if there's enough VR players out there, that it's good enough also on the flat screen to attract players there, that's going to not double our user base or double our multiplayer user base. It's going to quadruple or quintuple our user base. And so I think that's going to be the one-up that the PlayStation VR 2 has on most of these other headsets, right? There's multiple ways to play some of these games. And so that means there's a much larger pool of people playing at any given time. That's my hope. But when it comes to, you mentioned like Solaris, and we know that First Contact Entertainment, because of some job listings, is working on something for PlayStation VR 2. I don't see First Contact making a hybrid game. I see them making a VR only game, and I hope that doesn't bite them in the ass. Where if you were to make it a hybrid game, you could possibly get some more users in there.
Yeah, I kept rattling around in my mind as you were talking about all this, because on the one hand, playing with flat screen gamers, there are advantages and disadvantages one way or the other, that you might not want to have that cross-play. But then Firewall 0 Hour you can play on the DualShock controller, right? So, and I know it's not a flat screen game, but that's an example where you could actually have flat screen players with VR players, because if you're playing on if DualShock is an option, then that's the reason that you'd have people involved. Other games I'd be less convinced by. Grand Theft Auto would, if 5 came out as VR, I mean, you could do it, but like for competitive stuff, arguably it just wouldn't work out, because I used to love playing first person, but when you're in the open world, you were just at a disadvantage. because on third person, you can run down the street while having complete sight of what's going on behind you. You have a much more better perspective of hiding behind at the side of a wall. Arguably, VR would actually be an improvement on that, because you're not having to press a button to press up against the wall, take cover. You'd actually just take cover, and you could do blind fire. And I know that in first person, when driving in a car on GTA 5, it's a bit weird because you're using the dual the joysticks to, one is to control the direction of the car, and the other is the head movement. And that's quite awkward when you want to get a sense of being in this car, but it's still on a flat screen. So it's like a weird middle ground. Whereas again, if you're in VR, you'd just be driving and you could look around you and one hand out the window shooting and stuff like that. So a lot of this will have to be a lot of it will have to be tested. So I actually, after going through this bit of a train of thought, I do think actually there's a lot of opportunity for crossplay with flat screen games. I don't know how many crossplay popular multiplayer games are at the moment. I know I bang on about it all the time, but I didn't realize until recently Rec Room, VR gamers and flat screen gamers play in the same space.
Oh yeah. Flat screen gamers, and God, they play on all sorts of different ways on the flat screen, right? You got people playing Rec Room on their cell phone that are hanging out right alongside of you in VR, which is nuts. Sorry, sirens on my end. So so if they were able to do that, I mean, Rec Room is always super populated. And if anyone out there, I don't want to misrepresent myself or misrepresent First Contact or anything like that. When you look at something like Firewall 0 Hour and you say, hey, but this game was not hybrid, and this game has been wildly successful, and it's doing just fine on PSVR. There's never been a problem, with the player base. Just want to point out that there hasn't been a whole lot of competition. And I think that there's going to be much more competition when PSVR2 rolls around. Again, not just in the VR space, but in the hybrid space as well. So I think with more games, we're splitting the player base up more and more and more and more. What I'm most curious about, honestly, is after seeing the player base kind of die out on a bunch of different games, whether it be over on PSVR or on Quest or PC or anywhere else. I wonder if VR developers are thinking more about single-player games with a multiplayer mode rather than creating games that are multiplayer only, where their game becomes a coaster after 3 months. Poor Star Blood Arena, man. I'm never gonna not be sad about Star Blood Arena unless we happen to get a remake of that game on PSVR 2.
I know it wouldn't be possible with a game like Werewolves Within having a single player, although you could have a version with computers. But that's a great example of a game that I bought and just people were never on, and it was a really cool game. And it was just very, very frustrating when you want to hit critical mass so that when people go on, there's always someone there. Even if it's a small player base, you always want people there, because the moment you start logging on and no one's there, you're going to try less and less, and it's really hard to get the ball rolling on it.
Agreed. Man, the sirens are crazy in Worcester today. I apologize for anybody if you can hear that. So
we've only got two more to do because we did the one about family-friendly stuff, so we can race through these other two. So we got Awesome Tatum, who's just asked, with rumours of a PS5 Pro possible on the horizon, do you think it could be linked with PSVR2 coming out and needing the extra horsepower to further enhance VR gameplay and performance? My answer is really quick on this, Brian. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, though, which is... I think it's going to be a long time until the mid-gen version comes, because arguably, I still think we're in the launch window of PS5, even though it's been 2 years, and that sounds absolutely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. The way I regard a launch window is when you can finally go into a store and there will always be one available. Because I tell a lot of friends now who still can't get a PS5 that don't worry, because when you get it, it's a great time to jump in. It still feels like things are just warming up. I think it's going to be a much longer generation. But in the context of VR, I think that what the PS5 is going to be able to do is going to be enough. And I think that if they do have a mid-gen model, which I'm actually not convinced about for the PS5, but if they might do a slim version, but I don't think they're going to, and they're going to constantly be updating the hardware on the PS5 model, but not doing a PS5 Pro. But if they were to do it, it would just be like what the PS4 did for Pro did for VR games. It just gives you maybe a bit less lag, but I don't think those are going to be issues. I I don't think this is going to be something we're going to see for at least another 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, Sony and Microsoft must have agreed back in the day to extend the life of 360 and PS3, for longer than a normal lifespan, right? Because it really did take a long time for that generation to get off the ground, and or maybe they were just playing chicken, right, with each other and saying, well, we're gonna wait as long as we can, and but as soon as somebody else announces something, we're going to announce something too, and how it all worked. I don't think Microsoft or Sony is going to be in any rush to move this generation forward any faster than they have to. It definitely this is unprecedented for how long it's taken a generation to get started, and so this is. I am 100% with you. It still feels like the launch window. That's why so many games have still been cross-gen. That's why that's why I think that we haven't seen the typical push from Sony to get all these showcases out there and get the PlayStation experience back, and let's do a state of play every 3 months. There hasn't been a push because they're selling every single PlayStation 5 that they make. They're still really, really hard to find. So why do a push? Why try to convince people to buy something that is already selling faster than you can make it? And so God
of War Ragnarok coming out in November is coming out on PS4. That's 2 years in. It's right. a cross-gen title.
Yeah. So I think that tells us everything we need to know. Do you think, Myles, just because we're on the topic, do you think that'll be the last cross-gen title, first party we get?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. What I will say, though, is looking at Digital Foundry do a comparison of Horizon Forbidden West on the PS4 and PS5. My goodness, what they managed to achieve on a PS4 is absolutely remarkable. It is just absolutely. And there are mechanics that they said originally couldn't be done in the first Horizon game. I'm not going to give spoilers, but there are certain mechanics they weren't able to do in the original Horizon game because of the limitations of a hard disk. And I was quite angry. I wasn't angry. I was very disappointed to hear that Forbidden West was going to be cross-gen, because I was like, well, they were talking about how they're excited for PS5, and now this is happening. It turns out they've been so good at optimizing, they've actually now been able to do that stuff on a PS4, because we often forget a part of the journey of development isn't just about hardware. Hardware is the foundations. It's how you optimize, and it's when you see these companies like Naughty Dog do remasters and stuff. And when you hear Insomniac saying after they've done Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man that we've seen nothing yet, and with the Unreal Engine 5, all this happening, that optimization means you're not going to need a PS5 Pro to enhance the VR experiences, foveated rendering and things like this, which makes me incredibly excited of the scope of improvement we're going to see with VR titles over the next 4 years without a need for improved hardware.
For sure. I think by all reports, we're going to be so blown away by what we see when we actually put on the PSVR2 headset that we're going to finally sort of realize what the PlayStation 5 has been capable of all this time. Yes, it's had faster load times, right? The solid state drive's been great. It's been awesome. But I played Demon's Souls Remake, I played Returnal, and I'm not really seeing anything here. And then don't forget, everybody, I'm on a 1080p plasma television from 10 years ago, right? So I'm not seeing what everyone else is seeing on their 4K sets, but I'm not seeing so far anything that can't be done on the PlayStation 4 or PS4 Pro, right? And so we've barely scratched the surface of what PS5 can do, and I think we're all in for a huge surprise when we put that headset on. It's going to be awesome. Well, we're nearing the end of the show. Do you think we should start, or?
Well, the last we will do the last viewers takeover, because I think it's a short one, which was: do you think charge life will be longer on the Orbs than DualSense? I want to reframe the question a little bit and covering on it, and it's the idea of what do you think the charge life is going to be like on the Orbs, just generally. I've never had issues with the Move controllers dying.
I've never had issues with them either. I've got my original PlayStation 3 Move controllers, and they still last 6 or 7 hours. And that's generally as long as I'm in VR for. And so then boom, I throw them on the dock, and they're good next time I pick them up.
But the DualSense, I'm curious, because I do have two DualSenses, and one is on charge while the other isn't. And the one that I'm using, I will probably leave on the couch when I go to bed, and so I'm not necessarily charging it. So I do notice I am rotating them. Whereas if I just put the same one on charge after I used it, I'm curious to know what people get out of it. But yeah, the charge life on the Orbs compared to the DualSense, I assume because the tracking is going to be done from the headset itself, that could offset some of, the energy drain. But I don't know. I think regardless of it, if it's longer life than the DualSense, I think you're going to be able to play 6 hours without having to charge them.
That's the hope, absolutely the hope, and I know full well that I'm not even gonna wait to find out. PlayStation VR2 launch is going to be super expensive for me, and I'm gonna say fuck it. I'm gonna buy the PSVR2, which comes with the Sense controllers, and I'm just gonna buy an extra set of Sense controllers just so I can bounce back and forth. More sirens on my end. Thank you so much, Wister. You were nothing but respectful during our show. There's probably somebody like rushing by in an ambulance right now who's like, on his last leg, and I'm like, hey, can you be respectful of the GAMESCAST, please? My apologies if anyone died during that statement. Twitcher, the single player Gamecat with the 2 quid says, I got your back, Rody. I don't know what that was in response to, because it was literally 30 minutes ago. My bad, Twitcher. I love you so very much. Dude, we need to move on. We really need to move on because we need to get to the topic of today's show, right? I don't know if you were paying attention before the show, Myles, but we put out this poll out there, right? We put out a poll on Twitter. We put out a poll here in the chat, right? And this is all your fault because you make me do things. But the poll was, of course, asking you guys out there what tier of PlayStation Plus you are subscribed to, and so over on Twitter.
I'm curious to see how different it is.
Yeah, me too. I'm assuming like it's the same audience, but I could be wrong. So do you have eyes on the one in the chat right now? In the poll in the chat?
Yeah, I've got both of them in front of me. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, let's compare them one by one. The Plus Essential, which is the standard one, that's there's the same price, whatever that you were paying before. Plus Essential has taken the lead, 41.7%. What do you have over here?
45% in our chat. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Not too different. Plus Extra, which is the next tier up, we have 12.6%.
12% here. These are all pretty spot on.
Okay. And then Plus Premium with the 33.9%.
30% here.
Okay. So, and then of course, then there's 11.8% people who says I just don't subscribe to Plus at all.
Yeah, 30.
Which means that they didn't care at all about the multiplayer conversation we just had because they're not playing multiplayer games anyway.
So Twitter, which is going to have more people voting outside of our crowd, that seems to lean lower down, so the more essential extra, which makes sense because I think if you're a PSVR gamer, I think you're going to be more into trying out the premium for the classic games. You're just a much more deeper gamer. It's not to say you can't be a deep gamer who doesn't like VR, but naturally, if you're a VR gamer, you're really into gaming because it's a commitment. So that makes sense. What have you got, Bryan?
I guess I was going to say I just have Essential, but that's not true because I was like, well, let's see what the top tier is like, and unfortunately, they allow you to just kind of opt in for like a prorated amount till the end of your subscription.
Correct.
For just like $20, I was able to check out the highest tier, the premium, for the next few months, and And I enjoy it. It's not designed for me. It's not designed for people who collect games. It's not designed for people who, kind of like have sort of, for the most part, been buying everything, as that you're interested in throughout the years. I feel like premium is great, just like Game Pass, like maybe to buy for your kids. And to say, hey, like here's your video games for the year. You get a ton of great games, and you get a ton of great AAA games. A little bit after launch, and you get this whole back catalog of stuff to play as well. Or people who've just been out of the loop, or people who just like don't make gaming a super big priority in the same way that I do. I know that there's a lot of different ways to interpret what I just said, but like. It's nice that there's a big audience for this. I just don't think the audience is me specifically, and I know that I don't represent even a small fraction of the gamers out there the way that I play.
And my feeling with it is it's been great, and I'm playing some classic games like Ape Escape. I've never played growing up, so I'm giving that a go. I'm annoyed that the way the intro title screens come up at the rate that they did on the PlayStation 1, even though it's technically not a loading screen, it feels so slow getting into these games, which does annoy me. There's no nostalgia to that. Oh, I remember being able to wait for this. It's like, no, I just want to play the game. My feeling is mine's going to expire in November. I think at that point I'm actually going to drop down to extra, because the collection, and that's like the PlayStation Now sort of catalog. Like that catalog of games is excellent, and I think that for the conversation today, and that's why we've done this poll, which is about, you know, if there was to be a PlayStation VR Plus collection, I think that, you know, realistically that would be something that probably falls into the extra tier. Although sorry.
I mean, no, that's such a great point that you just made. Is that when we got the Plus collection over on PlayStation 5, when everybody bought a PlayStation 5, and I think this is still happening right now, right? You can still, if you buy a PlayStation 5 now, it would be unfair of Sony to say, hey, we've made the PlayStation 5 unable to be purchased for the last 2 years. And so this thing that we gave to all the people who were able to buy it just out of pure luck, like we gave all these games for free to all these people who bought PlayStation 5, but if you weren't able to get one through no fault of your own, you're no longer able to do this. At some point, this has to be expiring. They have to say at a certain point, hey, listen, the PlayStation Plus collection, it was only, you know, available for the first 3 years or something like that, and now we're just moving all of these games back to the PlayStation Store normally.
They've definitely extended it, because I know the only change was, I think, Persona 5. I think that's I don't know if it was a different version, but that was the only thing that got tweaked. But yeah, because there's licensing agreements. You got 10 games that are first party and 10 that are third party. Yeah. And that, it probably was going to be just for the first year, and then exceptional circumstances, they've tweaked it accordingly. So yeah, so for that, technically, you need the base PlayStation Plus, which would be essential to get the collection, PlayStation Plus collection with your PS5. So when you buy the headset, it actually might come with the essential, but it wouldn't also surprise me if it was a part of the extra offering. Yeah, I feel they should do it under the essential, because if you're paying that much for a headset, they want you to dive in, you know, and experience a nice range of games. Doesn't mean they can't also add VR titles to the premium. Extra. So I'm getting confused with it.
Yeah, with there only being one tier when the PlayStation 5 launched, there was no other tier to put the Plus collection under, and so it is a really good question to ask. Will it just be for the people who subscribe to the base minimum, the essentials, or if it will be linked to premium or extra? And I really do hope, you know, that it's just a gesture of goodwill to say, hey, you know, you subscribe to Plus, and on top of that, you just bought our brand new headset, and on top of that, 2 years ago, you just bought our brand new console. It's like, here's a PlayStation VR Plus collection, and that's what we're talking about today. Is that we think with a big question mark right now being held over backwards compatibility. I think the smart thing to do, and we've talked about this quite a bit on the show, the smart thing to do would be to get some of your first-party games, some of the quality third-party games that PlayStation VR 1 has gotten over the years, get all of these games upgraded for 4K, with adaptive triggers, using analog sticks, all the features of the Sense controllers, and then give at least some games to new PSVR2 owners for free, and say, hey, here's what maybe you missed out on last gen, or if you already had PlayStation VR 1, here's some free updates to all these games that you already loved, and they're, you know, close to PSVR 2 caliber now. You said there were 20? Did you say there were 20? In
this, if you scroll down this article you got, because at the top it's about like the bug snacks when that was released, but then they do have the list. So yeah, there was 10 first party and then 10. But I don't know if I could even name 10 first party PSVR games.
No, there were certainly a bunch that were paid for by Sony, right? If you look at games like Wanderer, that ended up being multi-platform. You look at the games like Durasane, I'm pretty sure that a lot of these had Sony funding behind them. Even getting games like Song in the Smoke over on PlayStation VR, pretty sure that came with some Sony funding as well, right? That probably would have just been a Quest 2 game otherwise, or a PC and Quest game. And obviously Resident Evil 7, right? Like, there's just no way. Like, we had exclusivity to that, and we still have exclusivity to that. So there's a lot of Sony money backing some of these games, which I think was a really smart move. But as far as games that you would call first-party games, I mean, very, very, very few and far between.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, like, off the back of what you were talking about just then, like, before we get into our specific suggestions, and really interested to see what everyone says in the chat, we kind of want to go into what Brian's already touched upon, which is, like, you know, generally speaking, what are the characteristics of what would make a good PSVR game contender for this collection? And so, like, the first one we've got on the list is best of. You want to show the best of PSVR.
True.
But I'll tie that in with another one on the list, which is diversity. So you might have someone that has not played PSVR. They got a PSVR2 headset, and let's just say they're into first-person shooters. Let's just say Call of Duty's got Warzone coming out for PSVR2, and that's the only game they're going to get. By releasing the collection where there's a puzzle game, a horror game, a family game, these games, someone who's bought PSVR2 and is just expecting to play Warzone in VR, they might go, actually, well, my friends aren't on at the moment. I might give these other games a go. And genres of games that they wouldn't normally like, in the context of VR, they're like, actually, puzzle games in VR are awesome, or horror games I was never sure about. I like how this makes me feel. And so I think there's a real opportunity there that with this collection, I think diversity is going to be the strength of this, of having a really... I'd rather have a smaller but more diverse range, because I think the purpose of this collection isn't to give people free games and they feel like this is good value because I'm getting free games. It's actually an opportunity to market, not just having to do like a PlayStation Worlds title to show the technology, right, but actually saying, no, we're going to release 10 titles or 5 titles with enhancements for PSVR 2. You know, it could be that sort of stuff as well. And I think that's kind of exciting.
Agreed. And and actually going over to this list of games that launched on PlayStation 5, these PlayStation 4 games that we got for free as part of the Plus collection on PlayStation 5. I mean, you look at games, it's Bloodborne, Days Gone, Detroit Become Human, God of War, crazy, Infamous Second Son, Ratchet and Clank, The Last Guardian, The Last of Us Remastered, Until Dawn, Uncharted 4. Those are all first-party games, and those are like just absolutely... those are system sellers, right? Those were games that people bought PlayStation 4s for. They are about as AAA as AAA get. And then just to tack on, hey, from our third parties, we got Batman Arkham Knight, Battlefield 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Zombies Chronicle Edition, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, Fallout 4, Final Fantasy 15. I know I don't need to read all these, but I'm just trying to give you guys the idea here that good. Like these are not like throwaway games. These are not games that like people would go, oh man, what a pile of trash, or it's really fucking hard to roll your eyes at this. Monster Hunter World, Final Fantasy 15, Mortal Kombat 10, Persona 5, Resident Evil 7, Biohazard. Absolutely insane the quality of games that you got. And all of them play better on PlayStation 5 to my knowledge. Maybe they didn't all at launch. Some of them were patched later on, like Resident Evil 7, Biohazard, but some out of the gate were absolutely played better, better frame rates, etc. And so I'm playing through Days Gone right now and having an absolute blast, and actually going, how the fuck did I skip this game, right? And I feel really fortunate that I waited as long as I did, because I heard there were some issues like around launch or the following year maybe, and it got all cleaned up, and so I'm playing the best version of Days Gone possible.
I was the same as you with that game. I need to go back to it, but like 60 FPS on the motorcycle is like, it's just so smooth, and it's really great. And it's also a great point about the fact that collection had really great like games that sold huge amounts. And so another part of this collection is it's about having, the best of games that have they've sold the bulk of what they're going to sell. Because, we might think of games, and we'll get to this in a moment, like, Beat Saber, which is like, it is arguably the best of PSVR 1. but that's still selling good now, and it's still going to sell good on PSVR2. And so on the flip side, there's also, they're going to look at games where there's old titles where it could benefit from a second wave of sales. It could be like DLC that's attached to it. It might be that they say, actually, I think it'd be a bit cheeky if they did it and said, but you can pay for a PSVR2 patch. I think that wouldn't be a good idea. But also it might have a halo effect with multiplayer. Let's say they bring Firewall 0 Hour and you're able to play with people on PSVR. That's actually going to bring a new wave. And then people who've got PSVR, who haven't got Firewall yet, might then end up buying the game. So that halo effect of just because you're giving away games for free doesn't mean it doesn't also increase sales with multiplayers, that other people then who don't have access to that go, but I want to jump in, and they'll do that anyway.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's what Myles is saying in a somewhat roundabout way is dude, I'm the king of roundabout conversations. So I'm just throwing a little shade because I feel insecure. What we're trying to say is that, games that sound like absolute winners in a Plus collection might not make the most sense and for various reasons. So we're going to go through a bunch of games. We're going to talk about a bunch of games. We're going to say, we're going to talk about some real top tier stuff, maybe some hidden gems that we think maybe belong in the list. And I'm going to throw this out there real quick, Myles. I think you and I both agree that maybe 20 games is overkill for an accessory, for rather than brand new piece of hardware. Maybe we keep this to 10 games, but we can of course discuss far more than 10 games, but maybe we narrow a list down to 10 games after discussing a few different ones. Sure. And the other thing I think, dude, is depending on the availability of PlayStation VR 2, I think it would be smart of Sony to say, in this premium pack of games is only available to people for the first year of release. And then everybody's like, oh man, I get 10 free VR games if I buy this headset this year, and as long as it's available for everyone to buy, as long as there's not PlayStation 5 like shortages, this could be one of the many things that push sales through the roof year one.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well,
just saying.
Can I kick things off with then a suggestion that, based on what you were saying, that I put on this list?
Yes.
Rush of Blood with a PS5 patch, because we were talking about this in the chat with the Gamecats during a previous show a week or two ago with one of your previous conversations, and the thing I said was 4K resolution, across two eyes, 60 FPS. With haptics, Rush of Blood would be a phenomenal experience. Like the what are the name of the creatures in Rush of Blood that jump at you really fast, beginning with W?
The
is it Wenlocks or something? I can't remember what they are. I've totally got it wrong. But whatever they are, they move really fast. That in 60 FPS, 4K with better resolution. Like all those experiences, and like seeing the track move at 60 FPS and the haptics.
Wendigo.
There you go. Thank you. All of that would just be phenomenal. So, and what a way to bring it back with all the issues we've got with the stop-start of the start button. But yeah, for me, I think that would be a must. A strong contender.
Oh, and it's possibly guys in the chat had it long before I could even Google it. Wendigo. Absolutely perfect game for this collection, perfect game for an upgrade, because it was a launch game, right? You've probably sold as many copies of Rush of Blood as you're going to sell, right? It's been on sale a ton of times, and for as little as $6. So making it free, like you're not exactly breaking the bank here. You're giving us a game that you've sold many times for $6. But dude, yeah, when you talk about the haptics, I mean, I'm thinking about the feeling of being on a roller coaster. Never mind the enemies. The feeling of being on a roller coaster and feeling the thunk, 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 thunk of
yes.
the wooden roller coasters
yes.
that you've been on, and feeling that just adds to the discomfort, right? Of being like, oh man, what's going to happen? This is an uncomfortable experience being here on this ride, and then even extending that possibly into the sense controllers as well. I mean, it doesn't even need to be said. Anytime you fire a gun with the DualSense, with the adaptive triggers and feeling the different different pressures. You're going to feel the difference between the different weapons. You're going to feel these are your handguns, these are your pistols, and then these are your shotguns. You're going to feel a difference when you fire those weapons. So that is absolutely a perfect game for this list.
Dave Station, hey dude, he corrected me right, which was the fact that Sony mandated that all PSVR1 games ran at least 60 FPS, which is very true. But having that at 4K, the resolution would be just phenomenal. But yeah, no, fair point.
I'm working. One of my least favorite personality traits about myself is that I correct people when they're wrong, and so I'm working on not doing that. And so, to Dave Station, thank you so much for allowing me to work on my personality flaws, because you're just the worst part of me right now. Thank you.
Dude, for me, and nothing's I know it's not personal, but correct me, otherwise I'm going to keep saying the wrong things. But no, it's 120 FPS, isn't it? A lot of stuff on the PSVR one anyway.
The refresh rate is 120 hertz. So it can get confusing going back and forth. I do want to get caught up on tips before we go too deep into our topic here. Intercept follows up on his Resident Evil 8 ARMS he was talking about earlier. He says, I feel like, with the $5 tips, I feel like they'll have some doors that have to be opened with your hand and others with a loading screen or cutscene. I could be wrong. It's an excellent theory, and now I'm going to obsess over Intercept until we figure out what the answer is, because there's a reason. Now we just got to figure out why. Dave Station VR with the $5 tips. Again, these are old tips. I apologize for getting to them late. It says, I'm late, but I'm here to say tip train. Toot, toot. Kill Artist 1, the Dreamweaver Gamecat. $2 tip says, Cats, I finally beat Iron Man VR. LOL. Loved it. Excellent. Chrome Colossus, aka GB, the Brev GC, with a $2 tip says, congrats, Kill Artist. So, yeah, congratulations. And I think that's going to lead me to the very first game that I want to submit for the approval of the Midnight Society, and that is that is Iron Man VR. Because, dude, what an amazing game with some ridiculous problems that, if given a second chance, could easily be fixed. Right? What was your experience with Iron Man? Did you have the same experience I did? Did you love it, but kind of like
Yeah, I loved it, but I stopped playing it because I was playing it on the most difficult mode because I was going for the platinum trophy, and the loading times every time you fell and start again, it's like, again, by the margins, that the loading time was just grating enough that every time you had to replay, I was just frustrated with the loading. It was too much. I'm yet to play it on the PS5, which I hear is a bit of an improvement. But yeah, I just felt it was a game that was made ahead of its time. Like the hardware and the optimization, arguably, I felt it was ahead of its time, and I think this needs a second wave. And yeah, the idea of using the propulsion in your hands with haptics, the feeling, because move controllers are great with the rumble. It's amazing the different textures you can do with it, but it's only when you go from a DualShock 4 to a dual sense you really realize what haptics are, and like the vibrancy. That the example I always give is on the Astrobot game when you're rolling the ball over the rocks. And I describe to people, it literally feels like you've got rocks in your hand right now, which just sounds crazy, but it's like the way they're able to bring those textures. So yeah, like Iron Man, can you imagine like going over the water, and when you get blown out the plane, and when the helmet comes on with the haptics, like, that the haptics are going to be very limited around the head because they don't want, players to get concussions. But that's going to be, as the Iron Man helmet is charging up, you'd actually probably feel this like going up the side of your face. I don't know how it's going to work, but like, yeah, it'd be really cool. So yeah, I love the game, but the loading times drove me crazy.
Yeah, unlike all of the other games that we're probably going to talk about on this list, the things I want to see in Iron Man VR on PlayStation VR 2 aren't really like, oh, let's take advantage of the triggers or the haptics or this or that. I mean, I think those would be amazing, obviously, for various reasons. I think having a spongy trigger, to when you use your thrusters would be absolutely amazing, right? And not to mention like the haptics that come with that. But I think the thing that I want most from Iron Man VR is for Camouflage to kind of have a second chance to do things right. Because there were so many moments in that game where you just have to, where you're like, oh, you have to fly over there and then pull this thing off the side of the plane. And then the screen fades to black to reorient you to face the thing that you need to pull off. And then then it's got these like kind of translucent hands that tell you exactly what to do. And then you do it in sort of like the scripted animation. And there's all these little things that combine to being like, this is not VRAF. In fact, this desperately wants to be VRAF, but is failing miserably at that particular aspect. And so I kind of want the team to be able to go, we had a chance to go back in. Now that the loading times are sorted out, now you can be Tony Stark and walk around Stark Mansion, with full locomotion and be able to do all this stuff, be able to skip long-winded dialogue scenes, be able to have more things to interact with while people are talking at you. Like there's just so many little things that can be improved that maybe it wasn't worth doing on PlayStation VR 1, but maybe worth doing to give your game a second chance on PSVR 2. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that one.
I'm wondering if there's anything they could do with the release to generate some more revenue. Because on the one hand, I feel it's actually a game that if they did a PS5 version, they could sell it. Because Marvel and the MCU is still huge.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that, if they deserve a second chance, what does that come with? I mean, look, the money they might get to be in the collection might be good enough, a good enough deal.
Yeah.
Because I know, I suspect the way it works is you get a sum, but it's also based on number of downloads and engagements and stuff like that. So,
well, the original game was funded completely by Sony.
So, it was. Oh, of course, yeah.
Right. So basically, what I think this would be more of a goodwill thing than anything else, right? Where they say,
yes.
Hey, and on top of that, give PSVR2 owners a game they can rave about at launch that they got for free. And again, that sells more headsets. Be like, oh, did you hear about PlayStation? Did you hear about Iron Man VR on PlayStation VR 1? Well, yeah, everybody kind of said it was sort of cool for various reasons. But now check it out, right? And then, maybe it doesn't generate any more revenue from software, but it sells like 100,000 more headsets because everyone's like, oh my God, apparently Iron Man VR is the fucking coolest thing on the face of the planet now, right? So like word of mouth, getting onto giving people a reason to stream it again, right? No one's ever going to stream Iron Man VR ever again unless there's a re-release. And so it's an easy way to get it back onto our channel. I don't know who else is doing stuff out there. Wolf in VR. I mean, I don't know. I just name random channels that have way more subscribers than me, and then that generates more interest. And for new VR gamers, suddenly they're like, "Oh, I need a PSVR 2." Just saying.
But there are also so many people that have jumped into the gaming ecosystem with getting PlayStation 5s during the pandemic, become gamers because they were stuck at home and were like, "Actually, I like this." And I know a lot of people that are going to jump into VR for the first time with this headset. And my point is going to be that there's a lot of people that still don't know that there's an Iron Man VR game. And when you think of VR and like you could be Iron Man, like their campaign Suit Up was amazing, and they did lots of campaigns. They had the Iron Man box set and stuff. Like I'm not saying they weren't promoting it; it didn't do great, but there's a whole the market of Iron Man fans and people that know this character. And it's like when you explain to people how it works in VR, you got to put your hands behind you, which, by the way, with the Move controllers had to be designed in a way that, you put your hands behind you, but not so far that it can't track it anymore. So actually something that's just come to my mind now is with the new orbs, you're actually going to be able to position your hands around you however you want. You're going to have more mobility because you're literally going to be able to put your hands wherever. You're not having to think constantly about, as long as the Move lights are out of shot of the camera. So that'd be great.
Right. Man, oh man, oh man.
Right.
And I do want to kind of reiterate that like my vision of this again is to be like, get your PSVR 2 headset because these games are only free for a year. right?
Yes.
If you're only able to download them for the first year, the headset. So then eventually, yes, it's great word of mouth for the headset, but eventually, yes, then Sony starts making their money back. Camouflage starts making their money back. It's the long game, right? It's looking ahead to the future rather than being like what's going to make us $1 today. It's like what's going to make us a lot of money in the long term. And I think an upgrade like this could definitely do that.
Yeah, no, completely agree, Brian. Right, next on the list.
I can't wait.
Okay, this one, I'm interested in a certain part of conversation around it. So it's Firewall 0 Hour.
Yes.
I know that you don't have to use the aim controller to have a good time with it. Mm-hmm. But when you use an aim controller, you have a really good time with it. I'm someone who couldn't ever play it without the aim controller now. It's so good that you can't then revert to 2 separate controllers. However, I've never played any of the other modern headsets that have good tracking. The whole double handing, holding with 2 hands like one weapon. There's a lot of games where you can pick up a rifle, like even in Rec Royale, you can hold a massive rifle with one hand, and with the second hand you can then hold it and move it. But it's just easier to hold it with one hand and point. Having 2 hands actually makes it harder to line up. I'm just curious to know how that would translate to the orbs on the PSVR2. I just want there to be a name controller for the next generation. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can guarantee, right? If Sony doesn't make one, or Sony doesn't hire someone to make one, then third party someone will create. Here's your PVC pipe, right?
Right.
And here's where you attach one sense controller, and here's where you attach the other one. And to be honest with you, once you put the headset on, I don't care because you've still got all the features and functions of sense controllers. And once you get the headset on, you don't care what it looks like. So by all means, if you're going to sell me a $20 piece of PVC piping, I am totally down for that. The fact is it's using two-handed weapons is going to work so much better with sense controllers than it did with the move controllers. That said, the added immersion of having it be one piece, one item that's moving in tandem with itself, is super super important, I think, for the immersion. So I would prefer that personally. I don't. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's a detriment, right? Maybe is that a detriment to getting this in the Plus collection? Is the lack of an aim controller at launch? Is that something that would keep this from being something that we should be recommending?
Well, this is for people that have not experienced it before, and so it's the kind of thing of unless you've used it, you can't miss out on what you've not experienced. So it definitely has to go on there. I was just sort of thinking of it as a sort of a side point. Would I play Firewall 0 Hour on the PS5 myself, for example?
Mm-hmm.
On PSVR2 myself? I'm not sure. I probably would, but just the aim controller, man, so good. So yeah, Brian, right now, so we've got okay, I know Rush of Blood, arguably, it's a horror game. We got a horror-ish game. We got an action game, and we've got a shooter.
Yeah.
What's your next choice? And it doesn't matter if it's one of those categories, but it'll be interesting to see how diverse we are with our selection.
Yeah, I do want to. I feel like I don't have any positive thoughts about Firewall. Before we move on, I'm sorry for.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, no, please.
I feel like I don't have any positive thoughts about Firewall being one of the games on the Plus collection because. You just got to figure, man, that the First Contact has something. We know that they have something in the works based on job listings,
right?
But like, do they have a launch title in the works? Do they have a Firewall sequel in the works? Is it
right?
Like, what do they have? And so, do they really want to cannibalize the sales of their own game with a free version of their last game? You know, like
that's a great point.
What exactly are they doing, or do they have this, Firewall Master Edition in the works for PSVR2, right? Like where it's all the levels and the weapons and everything, and the contractors from the first game, plus double the maps, double the contractors, double the weapons, and plus 4K visuals and all this stuff. Who knows what they have in the works?
Oh, I mean, look, I'm going to agree with you. And I think actually this point really heavily applies to Firewall, because I was about to say this could apply to all the games we talk about. Like there could be a new Rush of Blood style. I mean, I don't suspect there is. But Firewall definitely is. There's something coming. And I actually think that has the highest propensity for cannibalizing their own audience. Because actually Solaris, I think there was some of that as well. Some came from Firewall and then jumped straight back to Firewall because there was a lot of crossover. So yeah, no, I think that's a really, really great point and makes me a bit reserved with that choice now. But I kind of feel like as an idea of a collection for people that have never experienced VR before, regardless of what's coming down the pipeline, I feel like, okay, there might be a better shooter, but I think Firewall would be a solid shooter to say, this is what it's like to play a Counter-Strike style game. You know, I think Firewall is more likely than Alvo, because I think Alvo, for the reasons we've given already, I've seen Alvo's in the chat, by the way, so hi, Alvo team. But Alvo is a game that is still ongoing. They're still doing updates. That's a game that could come out for PSVR2 and they would still sell copies. I feel like there's still a lot more. And also, Firewall's already come out as a PlayStation Plus game, hasn't it? So,
oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, get me caught up on our own show, Myles. We had we started with Rush of Blood, and then what did we move on to?
Iron Man VR,
Iron Man,
and then Firewall,
and Firewall. Okay, I'm just collating the list right here to make sure that we don't forget, because I've already forgot. Dude, Rush of Blood, Iron Man VR, Firewall. I gotta go with a super obvious choice. And that's going to be Astrobot Rescue Mission, because Astrobot Rescue Mission fills in that family-friendly void that we need, right? Just to make sure that there's something for everybody. And honestly, like, whether you played Astrobot or whether you haven't played Astrobot, it doesn't really matter, because the fact is it's a game for everybody. It doesn't matter if you love horror games, doesn't matter if you're an adult, doesn't matter if you're a kid. It's just an awesome game. It's like it's the Disney. Let's go with something cooler. It's the Miyazaki of VR, right? It's no matter who you are, you should enjoy this game because it's just so awesome. And so this fills in that family-friendly void that we've got so far in our list. And of course, this is a game, even though this isn't like Astro's Playroom, this is a game that took full advantage of PSVR1 and did whatever it could in order to, from the devices that you use with the touchpad, to tracking the controller, to giving you a first-person view of a third-person game, and throwing seaweed on your face, all these VRAF elements. So the fact that they took full advantage of PSVR1, I'd sort of be interested to see what they would do with this to kind of push the limits of PSVR2 on day one. Say, hey, you know what? It's like, yes, we've got an Astrobot Rescue Mission 2 in the works, but we've upgraded our first game to take advantage of some of these cool features.
Yeah, because again, it's like if they did have one at launch, you wouldn't want to cannibalize it with this sort of game. But then I'm like, it'd be cool if they did a version for the PSVR 2 where maybe at the end there was an extra mission or something that then teased the sequel. You know, they could they just add a post. I mean, the credit scene in that game is amazing. Shooting with the gun is one of the coolest, and you get the coins from shooting the gold letters. Yeah. It's one of just the most... the thing about VR, and we talk about this a lot, and I know we're going to get to Blood and Truth. A lot of people in the chat have been mentioning it, and one of the criticisms of Blood and Truth is the idea that, you know, games that do well is where it's not gameplay cutscene, but you're always in the story bits, you're still involved. And although you are involved in Blood and Truth, it still feels like that gear change if there's bits where you're sitting around waiting for stuff to progress. And what Astrobot has done really well is, even in the credits, something that normally people just want to skip, they made it super engaging. That, like, the credits is a really fun level. And I think that really speaks to the great design. But yeah, I think there's something they could do where if they did release it as the collection, there's some way that they could use it to tease a sequel. You know, if you complete that game, you unlock stuff in the sequel, you know, stuff to make people want to play all of it. But yeah, dude, it's definitely on the list. Agreed.
And I think I think every game belongs on this list for a different reason. But I think one of the great reasons this game belongs on this list is because because Astrobot, you've got to figure with what they've done with Studio Japan, they've sort of shuttered a lot of the studios within Studio Japan and focused on a Sobi team who made Astrobot, and so if they're staffing up at Sobi, then you've got to figure a sequel's in the works. And so what better way to sell a sequel than to hand everybody the first game and say, this is why you need the sequel, right? So now all the people who already played Astrobot 1 are going to buy the sequel, and now everybody who didn't play it and maybe heard great things about it or never even heard about it before, now they're going to have their hands on it and go, holy crap, you guys were right about this. I'm going to buy the sequel the day it comes out.
Do we think, and this might be a conversation that's already happened on the channel and I just missed it, but do we think that the DualSense controller is going to be an option for PSVR2 games?
We do have this conversation occasionally, and what's interesting is
because it's important for Astrobot, isn't it? Because that game, a lot of the mechanics are using the DualShock controller, right. Like all the different upgrades you get, like the ninja stars and things like that. So there would be possibly a need to actually redesign it if it was going to require the orbs, and then in that way, actually, it's not going to quite be as good because the magic was the way it was so intuitive with a platform controller that had some extra interactivity in it. But
it's true. It's true. And so I think the funny thing is it took us a long time to get to Looper's tip. But I think this relates. Looper, the Underground Gamecat with the €10 says, I only saw front-facing cameras on PSVR2. So orbs, this is in regards to our two-handed weapon thing, I believe. Orbs have to stay in your FOV in order to be tracked. Quest players have this issue in Zenith, so they have to keep looking at their hands while climbing. So this is actually probably in response to your Iron Man VR.
The Iron Man thing. Yeah.
So, this is true, Looper, but there's also plenty of technology out there that Iron Man VR even used on PSVR 1 for the game to just kind of like assume where your hands are. They know your hands are in this general vicinity. And so like it's sort of an algorithm that plays along with the tracking itself. And on top of that, I would say that, I don't know if you've seen the cameras on PSVR 2. If you studied the pictures like I have, but look at the tiny ass cameras on the Quest. Look how tiny that is. See how tiny that is? It's like it looks like I can just go foomp and flick it off the headset, right? It's tiny. But if you look at the cameras on the PSVR 2, they're giant, and you can only assume that their field of view are much, much, much wider. And so even though it only looks like it's front facing, I think we're going to be able to reach far, far, far further in different directions than you can on the Quest. You won't always have to be looking at your hands, because I've heard people say that about Walkabout. It's like, oh, I got to look at my ball when I putt because it doesn't work. And I've experimented a little bit, and it does sort of depend on the situation. But yeah, I think that's one more thing that PSVR 2 is going to not solve, but come closer to solving than current headsets. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Having DualSense available for PSVR 2 would definitely solve a lot of the backwards compatibility concerns that we've had.
DualSense conversation. Thank you. But there's a light on the top of the DualSense. Right, there's a light. There, even though it's not IR light, right? It's a blue light or whatever color it's supposed to be on top. Instead of being front facing like the DualShock 4 had.
Oh, that's true.
It's on top. So is that, and there's got to be a reason, Myles, why they would do it that way instead of the way they've been doing it. And I think that, to be honest with you, it's so the headset can track it. IR light's not much different than regular light. Right, and so if you can track IR, it should be able to track a light just to say, oh yeah, we know where your DualSense is, no worries. And then you got your touchpad right there, you're good to go. Yeah. Solved. You're welcome.
Great. That was a great suggestion now, and nice with a family-friendly one. So, oh man, next up, what are we going to do? I mean, look, let's go with one that the chat mentioned, so Blood and Truth.
Sorry.
No, but I understand completely. Again, it's like,
dude, I love Blood and Truth. I just like being a contrarian.
It's I think it would definitely be a one for the collection, because it's action. I think it fits. It's sort of, it's kind of a rail shooter in some ways, but it's not. It's sort of a good middle ground. So I do think it holds its own. It has some cool interactivity with the shooting range and things like that. It's a very well polished game. It has the more cinematic elements to it. So although it wouldn't be one that I would necessarily rank high on this list, I see it as a strong contender just based on the fact that it was done by London studios and it was, you know, it had a lot of updates post-launch, didn't it?
Yeah. And some of those were aim controller updates too, or games that, or ones that you could play with the aim controller. I never actually tried the aim DLC without the aim. I don't know if you need it or not. Curious.
Right.
Yeah. It's a great game, man. It's a great game, and I think, you know, and it gave us an interesting way to tell a story in VR, and it really added so much to the time crisis formula, which until this point had been very, very arcade-like, right? You'd have like these 5-second or 10-second intervals between shooting segments, and then this was like, hey, we're just going to introduce you to characters and tell a story and create intrigue, and this is an action movie, and you're just going to play the action parts. And so, yeah, so dude, this did something in VR that hadn't really been done yet, and really hasn't been done since. So you could certainly disparage the game and say, you know, there's too much standing around talking to people or having people talk at you, but what this game does is pretty brilliant.
Agreed. Yeah, so I think, yeah, definitely on the list. In terms of my own choice, I was going to go with Saints and Sinners, because they've got the sequel coming. Well, it's going to be out by that point anyway.
Right.
That's an example of what we're mentioning about what characteristics would work well. It's one that becomes a pipeline for people that are like, oh, there's this new Saints and Sinners game. Am I going to like it? Oh, there's the first one. Hey, this is pretty good. Wow, and it's one of the best games on PSVR. Yeah. And then you go, well, I'm definitely going to buy the second one now. And so, yeah, I think that would be a really, really strong entry. Also, because I think that they've probably sold, I don't know how many they're still selling now, but I feel that by the time we get to the launch of the second one, all focus, anyone that's, you know, interested in Saints and Sinners games is just going to go and buy the second one. So if it's about encouraging new people, give them the first one for free.
Yeah, this is one of the few games that I thought was practically perfect on PSVR, but constantly throughout the course of, you know, it's been how many years now? Like 2.5 years or so. I can't remember exactly when it came out. It's been a while since it came out, and on my review, I keep seeing people's comments saying, I can't play this. I can't play this simply because the Move controllers are terrible, right? And that might be because of their setup. That might be because they're just not familiar with how to navigate worlds with full locomotion. There's a lot of different reasons, right? The Move controllers were kind of crappy. You know, a lot of us dealt with them and got really good at using them, and like my room is set up differently now because of the Move controllers, right? Like just making sure that I had the absolute most perfect setup possible. Not everybody was capable of doing that. Or was knowledgeable enough about what caused problems with the Move controllers. And so like the simple fact of adding analog sticks to the proceedings, I think is such a huge deal for Saints and Sinners, getting people to get in there and just be able to walk around the world without having to, you know, go online and see a tutorial about how to use the Move controllers to walk around. That's way bigger for people outside of our community than I think any of us realize.
Yeah. I mean, look, one of the most impressive things about Saints and Sinners for me was how with just the limited, you know, the vibrations of the Move controller, how visceral it felt when you stab a zombie in the head.
Yeah.
Sorry, Walker, in the head. And, you know, and you're pulling the knife out. There's a real sense of like, you know, you're holding his head with one hand and the other, when you're just like in midair, and yet you get a sense of that tension. How that's going to be with the orbs, man. I might need to get a check afterwards. Yeah.
Nice little therapy session will do us all well after that much murder.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw, but Dave Station VR is in the chat with a $2 tip. What's up, Dave? He says they need a Neko Atsume game so that you can pet the cats. I agree, man. Like Neko Atsume was fun on PSVR 1, but very, very limited. You need to be able to get up there and make Neko Atsume VR AF, man. I want to feel the fur move through my hand when I pet the cats. You know, we always talk about like rough textures, like grabbing onto ladders or feeling the rope when you climb in Horizon Call of the Mountain, but we don't talk about fluffy things very often. You know, especially cats. So I think it would be cool to see if the sense controllers could simulate the softness of cat fur. And
right.
I don't know how that would work.
So, two like categories of games, Brian, that I'm thinking we haven't touched upon yet.
Yeah.
One is rhythm games, because we've already touched on Beat Saber earlier in earlier convo, and the fact that we don't think it'd be a great game, but it's probably not going to be the.
You know what? Let's just talk about Beat Saber, man. There's no reason not to talk about Beat Saber. I do think 100% this would be an amazing game for the Plus collection, right?
It would.
This is number one on the sales charts constantly. This has been the most popular PSVR 1 game so far. And so why not give it to people free again for a year, and then eventually.
Yeah.
Why this would work so well, Myles, is because you get the game for free, and then you realize, right? And so people who didn't think they liked rhythm games, people who didn't think they were going to like Beat Saber, people who just it gets them into the game, it gets them trying it in a way that they wouldn't have prior. And they go, look at all these songs. And then they get into it, they start getting better at it, and then go, damn, I can buy Panic at the Disco DLC, well, I can buy Green Day DLC, I can buy Imagine Dragons, I can buy, and they just start going off, Fall Out Boy and Linkin Park, and then suddenly, maybe Beat Games didn't get their $30 for the game itself, but they got $100 because somebody who wasn't going to play the game prior spent $100 on DLC, who suddenly loves it, who wasn't going to play it prior.
Dude. Yeah, if they launched it on PSVR 2 and they brought in the progression system with a battle pass and new DLCs and cosmetics, all that system stuff, yeah, you're right, they'd be onto a winner, because it would also make multiplayer. They could do a new multiplayer update as well with all these different modes. Like, maybe we could dream that Beat Games are getting ready, for next year, and they're going to do a massive release for progression system and all this sort of stuff. That would be amazing. So, yeah, I take that back, actually. Based on great arguments you've made that I was actually mentioning earlier, I was even listening to my own arguments of of course, if they release that for free, all the other DLC. So, yeah, there aren't any other rhythm games. So the other two categories then is a game that's more to do with less objective based, but more creativity. And another one maybe a fitness one, or one that's to do with a lot of working out and stuff. The creativity one, do you think, Brian and Gamecat's in the chat, do you think Dreams would be, or do you think that's one that they could still sell?
I don't think it's selling terribly well now, right? It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in something that's so powerful and lets so many people finally not only make games but make VR games. It just seems it's to me, it's like a dream come true, even though I haven't actually made a game. I'm sorry. I don't know when that's going to happen. But if it's not, it wasn't selling at $40 when they launched it. It doesn't seem to be selling at the new price of $20. And so a lot of people have said that you need to make this game free. You need to make this free to play in order for the community to really, really get engaged and for the community to grow. And so making it, kind of using the Plus collection as an excuse to make it free, rather than just saying, this wasn't successful, here you go, it's free. Make it seem like a reward. And then make it seem like a reward for buying the PSVR 2. And obviously with all the PSVR 2 upgrades that should be planned, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Is Dreams, I know they redid the intro quite early on, but is Dreams actually an easily accessible game for people that are new to gaming? Would you go into that game and get a real sense straight away of what to do? Because I feel like it's you have to be quite
to make a game? To make
no, but when you go into the game, you do that sort of tutorial at the beginning, and then I don't know how clear it is, because a lot of people that have never done VR before or are new to the PSVR 2, you want them to go into dream surfing, correct? I mean, look, some of them will want to start creating, but that's quite a big commitment for and I know that the collection's not just going to be about engaging with new people, but I was just curious to know your thoughts on, do you feel Dreams is actually a good introductory game? Do you think people that are new to VR would find it easy to get into that? Is the dream surfing easily accessible? And
I mean, I think finding some stuff right off the bat to play is absolutely super accessible because they've done an okay job. When I say okay, I mean okay for people who are just stopping in once every 6 months, curating the front of more sirens on my end, the front of the Dreams menu, right? You just kind of flip through and go, oh, this is recommended. This is recommended. Oh, this is, whatever. So there's a bunch of stuff to play right off the bat, and then once you've exhausted that, you're really kind of on your own, and then you have to like start looking at like AJ's list, or you have to start looking around on Twitter and finding other Dreams creators, or doing a little bit of the work yourself and like following the creators that you like, that you've of the games that you've played, and then going in to see what else they've made and checking out their other stuff, and then you kind of end up going down like this rabbit hole of sort of it's sort of like when you go down like a Wikipedia rabbit hole, you're just like, oh, I'm gonna click this and then click this and then whatever over here, and then it does take a little bit of work, but I do think you can get there. So I feel like Dreams, if it was given away as for free as part of a Plus collection, I think for a lot of people it would be something they jump into, play a little bit, kind of get confused or get overwhelmed, put it down, and then like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later they pick it back up and go, I'm curious about this. I'm going to put some work into this today because maybe the release schedule is slowed down and they have some extra time on their hands. Who knows?
Yeah. A lot in the chat, I think Rayman88 was mentioning it, of they need multiplayer. And I agree. And it's one of the reasons why I don't go into Dreams much, but when I do, I'm impressed. And with everything AJ does, which is just brilliant, I need to go in and play some of his playlists. But it's one of the reasons I love Rec Room. And when it comes to the creation components, Dreams, without doubt, is a game engine for creating fantastic, realistic environments. Rec Room has a very specific aesthetic, but the reason I like the creation mode on Rec Room is you can create with your friends around you, and you can create the rooms, and you can go to say, hey, should we play this together? As soon as Dreams adds that, that's going to be incredible, and that would be amazing to have at launch with PSVR2, the multiplayer. So it's like, hey, let's go dream surfing together, and that would be fantastic. I think that would be huge. So yeah, all right, Dreams.
All right, I'm in full support of this. Like I said, I'm in support of this thing being free to play to begin with, and so again, having a good excuse to make it free to play instead of just being like, we failed, here you go. I think this would be a much better way to message that. So again, Myles, every game that we've talked about on this list, we've sort of introduced for a different reason. Here's why this would be a good addition to PlayStation Plus, PlayStation VR Plus collection, and the one that I'm going to recommend next, I think the reason for this one is because the developers need to give us a gigantic "I'm sorry," and that's Stride by Joyway, because obviously there's. You can look at the launch of this game, you can look at how it plays right now on PlayStation VR 1 and say, man, this is a lot of fun, but geez, the jumping is kind of awkward, and running with the move controllers is a little bit strange, and doing this, whatever, like you grab onto ledges and you pull yourself up and it gets a little bit choppy, and there's all these little things that just need to be improved. But then on top of it, they're now kind of saying, hey, listen, we didn't promise you jack shit when it comes to the campaign, when it comes to the multiplayer, when it comes to even the extra time attack modes, right? The extra time challenges they've introduced for other players. It's like they're sort of being like, hey, listen, like we didn't tell you guys that you were getting this, and so it felt like a bad move. And so if they were able to say, hey, you know what, we'll be part of this Plus collection. We're going to give you Stride, and it's going to come with this, it's going to come with that, whatever. It's going to come with the campaign, and it would be a nice apology, I think, to PlayStation VR 1 gamers to say, we weren't able to do what we wanted to do for you on PlayStation VR 1, but at least with PSVR 2, we were successful, and now you're caught up with the other platforms. And of course, not to mention that this game's kind of blurry on PSVR 1. It'd be really nice to see it in 4K. And with controls that make a little bit more sense. I love Stride, and I do not want to see this game die, especially on PSVR, just because maybe they were mismanaged a little bit.
That's great. It's a game I still need to jump into, and I'm really excited to. And I would definitely jump into it on PSVR 2, but I'll be playing it way before then. Yeah, that's a really, really, really good suggestion, Brian. Are there any titles, chat, that you feel we're clearly missing? Like we've totally missed the mark on? How have we not mentioned this so far?
Oh my god, dude!
I know we've still got a couple.
We've got 7 hours left in this show.
I know, right? But the thing I was going to say was, do you think there's any? We mentioned fitness already, or a game that requires a lot of physicality. I guess Beat Saber does cover that actually.
And Stride, both of those games.
And Stride.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then the other 2 categories I've written down: adventure, and puzzle, like a actual puzzle game. Like, what puzzle game on PSVR is just one that's head and shoulders? I mean, how about I Expect You to Die?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, my brain goes to puzzling places because I'm ridiculous, right?
And I love it as well.
Yeah, but and again, Puzzling Places is a game that has DLC that they're releasing every single couple months or whatever it is. I forget exactly what their DLC plans are. But that's it. But that's a game that once you have the core game, you can certainly profit off of people buying the DLC for. I Expect You to Die is a tricky one, right? Because maybe you port both of those games over to PSVR2. You give the first one away as part of the collection, and then you do the second one. You sell the second one, and then again you get more people interested in the series than you would have prior. It's a tough one. It is. I'm looking at my list right now, and I really don't have any real puzzle games on my list.
I'm just going to quickly read all the suggestions that have been coming through the chat.
Nice.
Moss VR. I mean, look, Moss has already been a PlayStation Plus, wasn't it, at one point?
Perfect.
I think.
Let's do it again.
Yep. It'd be good, yeah. Racing is a category we've not done. People say Wipeout.
Dude, Wipeout is 100% on my list, and I absolutely agree with the chat. I think that, dude, especially since the rumors are kind of pointing to a PSVR2 specific Wipeout game being in development. Like this is a series that's sort of dried up a little bit. I feel like the futuristic racing genre kind of hit its peak on PS2 and just dragged on over the course of PS3 and Vita. And it was like, okay, we don't need these futuristic racing games. Just aren't doing it anymore. They're just not as cool as they used to be. And so, getting the compilation of Wipeout Omega Collection and being able to play it in VR was sort of a way to bring it back from the dead and do it in style and be like, this is the way this game was always meant to be played. Feels very like Lawnmower Man intense, right? And so to bring this game over to PSVR 2 as part of the Plus collection, and then say, oh, but don't forget, we've also got this exclusive Wipeout game in the works for PSVR 2 that takes full advantage of all this stuff. Yeah, man, I think that would be a perfect segue to get people excited for that. That's
awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. Serial Killer, the Independence Gamecat said, did you say Superhot VR? Superhot was actually on my list. But it was always a game that I show people as soon as if they've never done VR before. It was like one of the first games I go to. It's no longer, and it's not because it's not a great game. It's just there are other experiences, but they still love it. All You Are Is History said mini games, so like Pierhead, arcade, or Carnival games. But yeah, I kind of like that. I feel that I was trying to think if there was we need a category of a game which is more mini games and sort of more simple.
Well, what about I mean, this is going to be maybe a divisive thing to say, but what about a game that wasn't on PlayStation VR 1? Why can't there be? There could be a game in the PSVR 2 Plus collection that we never got on PlayStation VR 1. And there's plenty of examples of games that we could include, like Bigsreen. Bigsreen's not a game, it's more of an app, right? But it's something that we all kind of need, right? And
PlayStation Home.
Dude, big screen, PlayStation Home. I'm even willing to go as far as saying Pokerstars VR, right? Pokerstars VR, a ton of microtransactions that you could be spending money on, but let's make sure we get that game in the hands of everybody. Pokerstars was supposed to come out on PlayStation VR 1, even got to the point where trophies went live, and then it just never came out for some reason. So like again, what a that would be an absolute perfect game to be in the Plus collection. Perfect game.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But Bryan, we've not said Resident Evil 7. And I really respect you for holding back this long.
Did I not say Resident Evil 7 already? I was only doing the show because I was going to be able to talk about Resident Evil 7.
I know you haven't said it yet, Bryan.
Okay, well, I mean,
do you want to say it?
I mean, isn't it kind of obvious? No, I think I think being able to say Resident Evil 7 it goes without saying, right? Like why it would be so amazing, and it's because, dude, there's still people out there. I'm still getting comments to this day that go, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard on PlayStation VR 1 is not real VR because you don't have two hands in the game. Your head is in the game, but the rest of your body's not. And I kind of get it, right? I was super immersed. I loved the head tracking. I thought DualShock 4 implementation was great, and it felt great. And within minutes, I forgot that I was holding a controller. That said, it would be like one of the ultimate VR games if I got my two hands in there with the Sense controllers, and just, and updated the visuals to really take advantage of what the PSVR2 can do. Yeah, man, this is high on my list. It's not number one because I've already played it 17,000 times. And I don't know what you guys are doing tomorrow. I'm going to stream this from beginning to end on the channel tomorrow. Because I just love this and been dying to get back in. But if you guys want to hang out tomorrow for like 4 or 5 hours, I'm just going to stream it from start to finish because I miss playing it.
Great. There you go. Well, yeah, no, RE7 for sure. What was the one that was in the chat that I was just saying? Also, I mentioned the persistence.
We got Looper, the underground game cat with the €2 saying Hitman. Hitman, by the way, it gets a free map in 2.5 weeks. That's true. He gave it, and dude, I think the worst thing about Hitman currently on PSVR is the DualShock. I mean, like I said, I got used to the Resident Evil 7 DualShock support because it wasn't like all janky and shit, and it didn't use motion controls. But Hitman does. Hitman does. I was just talking to Kill Artist in voice chat, and dude, it's just having to use that whatever the strangle wire thing is called, and it always just glitches out. And I'm like, well, that killed the immersion. And the dude's just standing there while I'm like, hold on, I'm gonna hold on, no, it's gonna work this time. You pull the it doesn't fucking work half the time. It's a mess. It's a mess, and it's a beautiful game that looks like what you'd expect PSVR2 games to look like. It's a technical marvel from a graphics perspective, but kind of a train wreck from a control standpoint. And so, unlike Resident Evil 7, Hitman absolutely needs the control update. Good call, Looper.
The persistence we touched on already a little bit, but they had the enhanced edition with ray tracing, which isn't available in VR. So that's, I think, definitely one.
Another one with only DualShock 4 support.
Yeah, that's also true. Dave Station said, "I will repeat once again, Tetris Effect."
Yep. That was
to be honest, yeah, Tetris Effect is one of my top 10 PSVR games, because this is gonna be a completely different conversation, so I'm not going to get into it now about why I love Tetris Effect. But the clarity when you're in that game, it's so immersive, and obviously all the artwork and stuff, and to have that in 4K. I don't know what they do with haptics. Again, you'd need to use the DualSense. If that's possible, then that'd be amazing. So, yeah. I love that this conversation's made me really think about whether the DualSense is going to be usable more than before. Because when we actually think about a lot of these classic games, the DualShock has been a big part in it. Cool. So at the moment, this is what the list is. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games, although there might have been a couple I missed. But we've got Rush of Blood, Iron Man VR, Firewall 0 Hour, Astrobot Rescue Mission, Blood and Truth, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Beat Saber, Dreams, Stride, Wipeout, Moss, RE7, Hitman, and the Persistence, and Rigs.
I mean, I'll tell you, man. Like, as somebody who's not a fan of rigs, mostly because like the sport of rigs just wasn't interesting to me. I loved like the freedom of movement and how like they threw caution to the wind, and it made a lot of people sick at launch. But it felt amazing to play. It really gave you that rush of when you're jumping around in VR that like you don't experience in a lot of games. Nailed it. And for people who like sports more than I do, man, I really hope that game gets a second chance because I know there's people out there who fucking love it. Absolutely.
I actually enjoyed it. And one of my favorite things about it was that when you were loading into matches, you'd actually be on the aircraft going between matches. So you felt like you were in the world, this sports world. One that was mentioned in the chat, Loop, the Underground Gamecat, Wanderer must be there. Yes. We were talking about adventure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, adventure. Well, Wanderer has to be there. So, yeah, Wanderer. Already we've got a massive list. And I'm like, okay, we've gone over 10. And I was like, we've got to keep it to 10 because how many games are there to choose from? But I'm like, that would be an incredible offering. And yet there's still so much to play. Like, that would be a great introduction. So it really does put in perspective the to be a starting point. And that's how we also felt about the PlayStation Plus collection, which did have RE7 in it as well. A lot of us who were big gamers looked at that list and went, I've played most of them already. But I was really... But what I felt when I saw it was, I'm so happy for people who haven't played those games and they're going to get, with their new console, they're going to get to experience these for the first time. And like, I'm really happy for them. And when I look at this list, I'm like, can you imagine having never played any of those games? Like, you've never done VR and owned one before. Yeah. And, you know, you've spent your scrape in the bank to get the PSVR2 and you're like, oh, but I'm not going to have really much money to buy games as well. And it's like, but actually, because that's kind of what the collection was about as well. They kind of framed it in the sense of times are tough because the economy was tough at the moment. And we want to, you know, they do games of play or whatever it was called, days of play. And they do those offerings. And yeah, I think having a collection like that would be just phenomenal for them to do.
Yeah, it's funny that we brought up Wanderer because I feel like Wanderer is the first game on this list that we've included for a very, very different reason than all the other games. This game just came out too late in the PSVR lifespan, you know, and is not out on Quest yet, if that's still a plan for them. So like, it just didn't get the attention it deserved. It felt like it had AAA production values behind it, and not a lot of people played it. So I think it's the first game on our list that just needs a second chance because it just came out too damn late. So that's a big one for me. And to move it on to one of my last suggestions, I'm going to go with Johnny No Pockets, Gamecat, in the chat, who says, Song in the Smoke, man. Song in the Smoke all the way. And I saw Nick, the Gamecat How, say Song in the Smoke isn't for everyone. But that's fine. Not all these games are for everyone, but people who like survival games and really appreciate that VRAF element, I think Song in the Smoke is a game that could benefit hugely from... These worlds are not that big, right? It's like each map is a decent size, but like it's a lot of the repeated same textures and stuff. And so I would love to see Song in the Smoke push the level of realism and have like the water look realistic and just give me a realistic world to try to survive in. And I'm sure I'm about to hear from everybody in the chat that's like, you need to play Green Hell VR. It's like, but that's a different game. Well, I want to play Song in the Smoke on PlayStation VR 2. And maybe have it get rid of some of the things we didn't like about it so much, right? Maybe the teleport to jump thing can go away. Maybe climbing could be a little bit more immersive. There's all sorts of little things they could change for this game. Improve the graphics. Improve the... Oh, dude, can you imagine like carving the shaft of an arrow and feeling that in in the controllers? Oh man, that'll be so much fun. That'll be great. Because it's already super immersive, and
right.
the added feeling in the Sense controllers is going to be great.
So I also, in that, when I typed out that list, I forgot to add the Tetris Effect that I mentioned, and someone in the chat mentioned catch and release, and I was thinking actually a chill out game, like a really chilled game. Catch and release is actually really good for that, and so that actually takes us to 18 games now. So like, I know we might come up with another 2 in the next couple of minutes, but it's you know, actually 20 games. When we started this conversation, we felt like, well, for flat screen games, 20 is obviously a smaller percentage VR, but actually looking at it, I'm like, no, 20 games actually okay, it's incredibly unlikely, but it would be it would be an amazing offering, and it would not take away from the fact that, as my prediction is, in September when we get the showcase, we are going to be shown hybrid games, absolutely mind-blowing next-gen experiences. You know, Horizon Call the Mountain. So you got all that sort of stuff as well. So having a collection like this is not a detriment to. It's not going to cannibalize all the stuff that comes out as a result, because it just means people have choice, and that's great. And it makes people, as we said at the start, try genres and experiences that they perhaps wouldn't have felt the need to do before, because they didn't want to risk spending their money, especially after forking out on a new headset, which is going to cost a lot.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Dude, I've got so many more games that seem like they would be absolutely perfect for this list.
Well, reel them off, and let's get this to 20. Let's get it to 2 more.
Okay.
Someone says Vader Immortal, which I've not played, and I wonder, like, as a Star Wars property, it doesn't stop them from doing it, I guess. Would that be better than Rogue Squadron in terms of in
Star Wars Squadrons?
In terms of
see, look, I just did it again. Look, I corrected you.
I know, it's good. I'm glad you did. But like, which of those 2 games would be the better Star Wars experience to bring people in?
I don't know. Probably. I mean, we don't have any experiences on this list, right?
Yes.
And so maybe doing Vader Immortal would be the proper way to do it, because it eases people into VR. You know, maybe they give us like some small updates, like, you know, better graphics and full locomotion that we never got on PSVR 1. Fix the weird thing with the wrists. So there's a lot of little improvements they could make, and also just get it out there for people who love Star Wars and just need to be eased into VR, because I think that's what that was perfect for. But dude, Everybody's Golf VR needs to be on this list, right? Because Everybody's Golf VR was perfect, other than the fact that the caddies suck and they force you to go on dates with them, which is really dumb. And there's no multiplayer, right? And so if you say, hey, here's our first attempt at a golf game, but then you get everybody going, wow, the physics are amazing, the graphics are amazing. I love how this feels in VR. They're absolutely killing it. And then they deliver a sequel with multiplayer, with with optional caddies, with way more courses. With DLC where you can just keep buying more cosmetics for yourself, and keep buying more courses, that kind of thing. Do the walkabout model where every couple months here's a new course. Which, by the way, let's get Walkabout in this collection as well, if we're including PlayStation VR 1 games.
You want multiplayer, don't you?
Yeah,
for everybody's goal.
Yes, 100%. Yes. Lots of sirens on my end. This one sounds like a fire. Is that a fire truck? Do you have different sounding sirens in the UK, or are they all the same, Myles?
No, we have different sounds, but I don't know if they're different to yours. We'll have to do a comparison.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother episode. The first half of
what I'll do is let me just call the police now, and then when they're here,
within minutes
we can then compare. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
I'm sure they won't mind. They're not busy. So yeah, actually, I haven't added Vader Immortal to the list, because then that would bring us to 20. So Everybody's Golf I've definitely added,
nice.
But Vader's Immortal is potentially going to be number 20. So quickly reel off the others you've got on your list. I'll tell you which ones stand out.
Oh crap! So at some point, the official list and my list merged into one big fat list. Let's see here. Where's the bottom? Oh, Fract. Fract is a great one. Golem. Immortal Legacy, right, because I can't go through an episode without saying Immortal Legacy. Borderlands 2. Derosine, because it's super chill point and click adventure game. That's something different for the list. Apex Construct, because I don't know, I miss it. Sprint Vector, but we already have a racing game. No Heroes Allowed. Oh, dude, no. I take it all back. Screw all this. Table of Tales. That gives us our kind of tabletop RPG game. Yep. I
was trying to think. We need some kind of turn-based.
Yes. Oh, dude, it would be so good if they added multiplayer to it, like they did, to make it more like Demeo on Quest. Table of Tales. And the thing about Table of Tales, and I said this in the review that I never published. One of these days, you're going to actually see my review for this game. One of my favorite things about Table of Tales, the Crooked Crown, is that it's called Table of Tales, the Crooked Crown, meaning like they could use this exact same interface, this exact same concept, exact same control scheme, everything, and make all sorts of different adventures with it, right? New tiles, new characters, new the dungeon master, it tells a different new story. It's just a perfect template to just give us a new story every 6 months or so, or to sell us a new story every 6 months or so. This game was $20, and it's this really does belong on top 25 lists. Somehow we keep overlooking it. Somehow I keep forgetting to get the review done years and years and years later. This would be a perfect game for the collection because it's way different than everything else we have.
Such a great one to end this list on. So everyone, we go back to imagining you're someone who's never jumped into the world of VR before, PlayStation VR. You get PlayStation VR2 and you get the PS Plus or PSVR Plus collection with 20 games. Imagine you've never played any of these before. You have got Rush of Blood, Iron Man VR, Firewall 0 Hour, Astrobot Rescue Mission, Blood and Truth, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Beat Saber, Dreams, Stride, Wipeout, Moss, Resident Evil 7, Hitman, The Persistence, Wanderer, Song in the Smoke, Tetris Effect, Catch and Release, Everybody's Golf VR, and Table of Tales.
I mean, and we know this is not a definitive list, you guys. Like, it's amazing. I see the defunct Bomb Bro, the Gamecat, rare in the chat saying Skyrim, no brainer, right? Skyrim, like, unbelievable. But Bethesda, they'd much prefer to sell us another copy of Skyrim on PSVR2. And who else was it? Kramer 3K says you need an MMO or a huge RPG on that list. Zenith, obviously, right, would be an amazing addition to this. So this is in no way is a definitive list, but man, it sure was fun to make it and hang out with all you guys for the last 4.5 hours. A lot
of people saying No Man's Sky, which I think would be great. However, because No Man's Sky, all of their add-ons have always been free, I feel like that needs to remain a game that you pay for, because if the price to get No Man's Sky now is the cost of a DLC. So it's like if there's a DLC that comes out for No Man's Sky that you love, just buy the full game because it's going to cost the DLC and you've got so much content. But it's a great suggestion.
Zombie in the chat says, "Sure, I'll buy Skyrim a fifth time."
A fifth time.
Yep. I mean, that's not me. Like I was gifted. Somebody, like a friend of mine, gave me Skyrim on PlayStation 3, and I went out and I killed the dragon with fire that came out of my hand. That was like the only thing I wanted to do. I did it, and I was like, well, that's enough. And so I never really played Skyrim again until the VR version. And so for me, this will only be the third time me or somebody I know for me will have purchased this game for me.
Oh man.
What a cool list, man. What a cool list. And it is fun to look back at this. Come on, Mark Stevenson, Bravo team. Really? I mean, I guess that's the only way you're going to get it in people's hands if you just fucking give it away. But it's cool. It's cool to kind of like take a trip down memory lane, right? And do this and look back at how amazing PSVR 1 really was, right? And be able to point out games like Table of Tales that like most of us have either never played or forgotten about is just so great. The last 6 years, 5.5, whatever it's been so far, it's just been filled with so many memorable times, so many like awesome adventures. So doing this has been a lot of fun, man.
It has, a lot more. I thought it was going to be a good topic, but like it really has, and it's been a great connective tissue between what's been before us and looking ahead, because we're looking at actually how would these games work on PSVR 2 with the DualSense and stuff like that, and what would it be like for people that have never experienced it before, which is definitely going to be a conversation we have, when we celebrate, top lists of all PSVR titles and stuff. But this has been a lot of fun. We just hit 250 votes on the poll, so we should end the poll now. I'm pretty sure the percentages are going to be pretty similar now. So what tier of PlayStation Plus? So Essential is the most popular, almost half. I'm curious to know if that's just because people have not, I was going to say bothered, just haven't had time yet to look at the offerings to decide to upgrade. For me, it was only because it offered what you mentioned, Brian, which was for about $20 till the end of the month. And I thought, okay, why not? Extra is at 14%, premium 27%. So yeah, it's amazing that the top two actually is Essential, so the basic, or it's actually the premium. But again, that could change a lot because, as I said, I'm going to go to Extra in November unless they bring out PS3 emulator and they really expand. But I tell you what I would love for us to do on another show, when you mentioned Time Crisis earlier, is talking about PlayStation classics that get a VR treatment. Because as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, God, if they actually did, well, we talk about Ape Escape and Time Crisis in VR, that'd be a great conversation sometime. But yeah, really cool.
Absolutely agree. Man, this is, I just realized, this was a fun, minuscule trip down memory lane, right? Like it took us almost 2 hours to get here. But more sirens. Yay. Here's the funny thing, Myles, is that the second the show's over, no more sirens until tomorrow. until I start the Resident Evil 7 stream. No more sirens until start that up. And they'll be like, oh hey, they're streaming again. Let's go commit some murders and start some fires over in Worcester. It's so loud. But dude, this actually made me really excited for when you, me, AJ, and Wes all get together for our top 50 debate. Because that's going to be the ultimate trip down memory lane. That's going to be looking at like almost every game that's ever come out on PSVR and finding a place for it on a list of our top 50 games ever made up for the system. And I just think that's going to be an absolute blast. Just you and me doing this was fun. You, me, AJ, and Wes, I think is going to be. I mean, it's going to be chaotic, but I can't wait. It's going to be like an all-day thing, dude.
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually think it's going to be less standoff because if when it's just 3 or 2, I mean 4, I guess it could be 2v2. Then the chat's going to have to then do the deciding vote. But I think it's gonna lead to a much more interesting mix because I think there's going to be a lot more trade-offs, and also there's going to be a lot of games that are just in that top 50 list that are clear of the others. Whereas when it was just you and AJ, you've got games in that list you're debating where only one of you voted for it. Whereas here it's like, maybe if a game gets less than 2 votes, then it's not even going to be considered. So, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, we really want to do that as soon as possible. But at the same time, we want to make sure that it's really, we look back at, we want it to be a cumulative thing. We want it to be a complete thing. We don't want to do it.
A good January thing. Like if it comes out in February, let's say, I think it's going to be a good in the new year.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, my only goal is to make sure that the last few games that we're excited about for the platform are out, right? And so technically it could be a November or December thing, depending on how it all works out. I want to make sure Saints and Sinners 2 is out. I want to make sure that Do Not Open is out. I want to make sure that those are all the games that are coming. I'll be damned. Okay. So we just got to make sure that those are out, and then we'll do it, and it'll be a blast. It'll be like an all-day thing. We'll just make sure it'll probably be an off day, probably not an official GamesCast episode. It'll be something when a day where all 4 of us are like, yeah, this is all I'm doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, listen, it's been a great time. And I want to thank you over there. I want everyone to remember to go subscribe to Myles over at youtube.com/Myles with one Y.
With one Y.
just one Y.
Myles 1 Y. Myles.
That's right. Myles 1 Y Dyer with 2 Ys.
Yeah.
Fuck. It's very confusing. Let's go subscribe to Myles' channel. The link for that's in the description below. Don't forget to join us over on Discord. The link for that's in the description below. Consider joining us on patreon.com/withoutparole if you like what you see and enjoy supporting the things you see financially. But that's up to you. No big deal. Do us a favor, though, and click the like button. We're trying to get this thing up to, 300 likes? Is that the goal? That's fucking ambitious, dude.
Yeah, but by next week, we might get there. I believe in the community. And I think this is one that a lot of people are going to be coming back to because it was a long episode. There are a lot of people that probably did have to chime out after an hour, and don't blame you. But I do feel that this is something where we would have done it a disservice if we'd squeezed this into, well, if we say an hour, it would have been like a 20. Actually, we do have it in our schedule as a 25-minute conversation. So, Yeah, you could say Bryan and I are optimistic at times.
Optimistic. No, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, no. Dude, Ian Stanbridge just said no 20 questions. Outrageous.
No, we got 20 questions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were totally planning on that. Absolutely. So, let me just not do the thing I was about to do and say goodbye to everybody.
Bryan, we've got to do this. We've got to do 20 questions because they've got the archive now. They've just built the archive, and then we're not going to do 20 questions.
Listen. Despite the fact that Ian Stanbridge has been saying outrageous things about me throughout the entire show, I'm still gonna do 20 questions just for him.
Good.
Yeah.
Have you got a game, Bryan?
I'm picking it right now. I'm not gonna lie. I was not prepared to do this, so give me just a moment. A lot
of people in the chat are saying, "Go to bed, Myles." I will be sleeping after this, and I've not been sleeping well this week, and after a very long day, lots of sunshine, which makes you tired, and doing this, I'm gonna sleep well. I'm gonna sleep very well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Myles. I have chosen the game.
Great.
I'm always nervous. This is the game I hope is not too obscure. I'm going to put 6 minutes up on the clock on the counter. Guys, you know how this works. I picked a game. You guys out there, help Myles big time, right? Big time. Suggest good
and just to
questions.
say, Bryan, if you think I'm going to get it wrong, feel free to correct me.
Thanks. You guys out there, help him ask some good questions and suggest a lot of games to him as you hear the answers to said questions. I'm going to put 6 minutes up on the clock up on the counter the way that Jeremy likes it. On your mark, set, go.
Is it a game we've spoken about tonight?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we're off to a good start.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Can you play it with the move controllers?
Yes.
Did it come out in the last year?
No.
Okay. Is the character you're controlling you? Like, is it first person?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it predominantly? Are there shooting mechanics in this game?
No. That's
No.
5.
Are there puzzle elements?
No. I wouldn't say anything would be considered a puzzle. No.
Let's go. Do you drive in this game or control a vehicle?
No.
No vehicle. Is the art style realistic?
No.
Not realistic.
So far, all we know is that it uses the move controllers.
It's not, which is
first person.
Oh yeah. Does the game consist of levels, like stages? Like it's got a linear progression of your one place, next place, next place.
I feel like if I say yes, it'll be confusing. So
Okay.
no, it's not. No, you're really not going from stage to stage to stage.
Okay. Has the developer made more than one PSVR game?
To my knowledge, this is the only PSVR game they've made. I can double check that as we're talking. That's 10, by the way.
So, just to remind everyone in the chat, move controllers not last year. First person, no shooting mechanics, no puzzle elements, no vehicle. It's not realistic, and it's not a stage-by-stage basis, and it's potentially their only PSVR game.
There's a good question in the chat that I see that would help you out considerably.
Is it currently on sale?
Is that the question? Are you
asking
if that's the question? Is that the question you should be asking?
I do 10 questions trying to guess what question you were looking at.
It's not currently on sale.
Sale.
And I'll give you a bonus. No. That wasn't the question that would help you out.
But I was going to ask the other one, which is actually. No, there's no puzzling elements.
Oh, really?
Is it a game? I love that. Is it a sports game?
No.
Not sports. So it's the not realistic thing, I think, is something that will narrow it down a lot. Does it have multiplayer?
Not to the best of my recollection. There may be leaderboards.
Okay.
But it's probably leaderboards.
Food question. Can't even see it. Do you serve food?
You don't serve food.
But
you don't serve food. No.
Yeah.
I can emphasize these words again.
Yeah. No,
you don't serve food.
You don't serve food. Oh my god. Fuck. Sorry, I rarely swear. I do it when I'm in despair. Does it involve fruit?
It does involve fruit, and that's 15. It does.
It does, yeah?
Yeah.
And does it involve a sword?
A sword? Yes, it involves at least one sword.
At least one sword. Is it Corix? I'm joking. Is it? Oh, mate, no. Now I'm freaking
7,
out. It's Fruit Ninja.
6,
it's Fruit Ninja. Is it Fruit Ninja?
It is Fruit Ninja by Half Brick Games. Pretty sure this is the only PSVR game that they ever made. They did make a Fruit Ninja 2 VR that never came to PSVR. Food is served to you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I was really hoping you'd ask me the. God, that's a train. That's a train, guys. That's not. It's a train. I think there's a train going through my apartment. Food is being served to you. I was hoping you were going to ask the question by Mark Pringlesleaf, who asked if it's based on a existing IP, which is very.
I didn't see that at all. No, yeah. Good one.
Yep.
That would have been a good one, actually.
Yep, I prefer the Vita.
That's
version.
The thing is when you get the same question every week being used and it never gets a useful answer, you kind of discard it. When you would get the like when you do get the answer, it can be nailing it, because that one normally doesn't do much, but that would have been really helpful in this situation.
Yeah, we need to start. We need to start combining questions. Like, is it based on? Is there a flat screen version of it, or is there based on an existing IP? And that way you can say no. And then, but if you say yes, then you have to figure out which one I said yes to. So, well, we gotta start getting creative with these questions. All right, you guys. Now it's time to go. It's only been 2.5 hours, and so I know that's a really short episode for us. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. Hopefully, we'll get to 300 likes, because it's been forevers. If you're hanging out, hit the like button. Do not forget to subscribe to Myles over at Myles Dyer official. Fucking train, man. Fucking train.
I did say I would show you the design on my shirt. They wanted to see if we hit 200 likes. So look,
have we not hit it?
Is there 37 more people in here that could press the like button? I don't think we're going to hit it.
It's not going to happen. They had 2.5 hours to get there, Myles. We can't sit around and wait for them to push the button.
Have you liked it yet, Bryan?
I have.
I have as well. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, that's
Next
just
time, guys.
That's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be. Guys, we want to give a quick shout out, of course, to Jay Meow, who gets this thing up on podcast services of your choice. So if you don't have 2.5 hours to sit around and watch us, then, hey, who knows? Maybe you got a long 2.5 hour drive to go somewhere, and you can listen to it there. Podcast services of your choice. Thank you very much, Jay Meow. Also, thank you to Sci-Fi Gamecat Henry, who has quite the task on his hands this evening, getting timestamps into this sucker. Again, apologies, Ollie. This is just really not your day. Hopefully you don't have some free time this weekend to watch this. Don't forget to join our Discord. Click the links in the description below. And dude, that's really it. Thank you to everybody, including et.2k9.now with the emoji, the $20 tip says woot. I was thinking it was a boombox, and I was thinking doing the say anything thing with like the boombox above the head, but it's really just a controller who's waving his hands. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who hung out. Thank you to everybody much who helped Myles in 20 questions. Thank you to everybody who contributed during the show with great comments and of course donations. But let's not forget the silent but deadly, the ones who sit back and watch the show and don't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there, and we love you just as much. After 2.5 hours, Myles, let's get out of here. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Have a great weekend.
I legit, I've run out of words. I have nothing to say. Nothing clever to say. Nothing clever to say over the thumbnail. I've run out of words, man. We've talked for 2.5 hours. I have nothing else to say.
Why don't we do another 20? 20 collection plus for the premium. Let's just do it now. Let's come up with 20. So
yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely.
Do it out. So what could we do? We could.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. We could.
We're not going to.
All right.